Chapter 1. In the early spring of Desu town, it was still cold to the bone. The withered and yellow forest was covered with snow. When the wind blew, the fine snowflakes scattered in twos and threes. In the cold wind, a few old maidservants whispered faintly. The second daughter of the Su family was kicked out of the house. She deserves it. I heard that she delayed the future of the first young master of the Su family. It's good that she was not beaten to death. Tut tut. The sky was just beginning to brighten. On the mountain path, an old woman with her body bent over was walking towards him. She walked all the way to a rundown thatched cottage at the foot of the mountain. She patted the frost on her body with one hand, pushed open the door with a creak, and squeezed in. She then immediately closed the wooden door, as if the door could block out the cold. The charcoal fire in the hut had long been extinguished. The old woman frowned, and her weathered face showed some distress. She walked to the bed quickly and lifted the quilt, which was as hard as iron. The little girl curled up in it and her face was blue and purple because of the cold. What a sin! The second madam is too cruel. Anyway, she is the second miss of the Su family. The old woman wiped her tears, carefully took out a bowl of steaming rice soup from her arms, and poured it down Su Aria's throat. Then she immediately made a charcoal fire in the hut, held Su Aria in her arms for a while, and left in a hurry. In a few hours, the third miss would get up. She had to hurry back to take care of her. Even if she knew that the second miss would not live past the early spring, the old woman still had a trace of hope in her heart, so she secretly came to take care of her every morning. Shortly after the old woman left, Su Aria, who was lying motionless on the straw bed, suddenly straightened up like a corpse. Then her eyelashes trembled slightly, revealing a pair of empty eyes. The charcoal fire kept jumping. After a long time, Su Aria's eyes moved, and then her little head slightly tilted, focusing on the charcoal fire. In her previous life, her face was ruined by this charcoal fire. "Mammy Lee," Su Aria murmured. She tightened the thin quilt on her body and struggled to get out of bed. Finally, she simply leaned against the charcoal brazier, and then she felt the biting chill receded a little. There was a small pile of charcoal in the corner of the hut. She knew that they were all stolen from the third sister's room by Mammy Lee. The third sister was her mother's favorite. Her mother allocated 50 kilograms of charcoal in winter, which could not be used up. Looking at the new sprouts on the bare branches outside the hut, Su Aria's eyes showed confusion. This confusion was fleeting, and soon turned into a bottomless abyss. All kinds of things from her previous life flashed through her mind. She was the second miss of the Su area, but her life was even worse than a maid's. And there was not a decent name. Until Area. In the life, Area Mad Su Area Su. In the past, in the Su family, only the eldest brother, Su Qingtan, and the fourth brother, Su Qinghao, gave her a little motivation to live. But after the disaster, even the eldest brother alienated her. She lived in hell every day under the torture of her mother. Because of the heavy work, after 10 years, she suffered from chronic diseases. She was only in her 20s, but she looked like an old woman in her 30s or 40s. Compared with the third sister, Su Zipei, who was 1 year younger than her, she was more like her mother. Because her face was disfigured, the Su family intended to let her get married in exchange for benefits, but she could not get married. In the end, the Su family also saw that she could not be used at all. Under the suggestion of Su Zipei, she finally married a crippled young master. She was not a wife, but a concubine. But that day was the happiest day of her life in her previous life. She had been tortured and scared. Time had already smoothed all her edges and corners. Her husband treated her exceptionally well, and could even be said to be gentle. In the second year, she gave birth to a son for him. She thought that she finally got rid of the bitterness and found a good home. But a few months later, her husband was beaten to death on the street, and her son was strangled to death. And she was thrown into the dirtiest place of the military camp. Later, she knew that all these changes were just because of a sentence of Su Zipei, the wife of the general, even if she is my sister, it can't erase the fact that her husband is the descendant of a traitor. In just a few months, she returned from heaven to hell. Su Zipei, on the other hand, had gained a good reputation for putting righteousness before family. She was willing to become a ferocious ghost and live an ignoble life in the military camp. But she secretly learned the inheritance of poison doctor and wanted to poison the whole Su family. But in the end, she accidentally poisoned her father. Su Li closed her eyes in pain and 2 lines of tears flowed down. When she was sentenced to death, she was tied to the gallows and dreamed of the next life. But she never thought that God really let her return to the age of 14. Gurgle, the sound from her stomach pulled Su Li back to reality. She lived on the rice soup sent by Mammy Li for a month. She didn't feel it when she was in a coma. Now she woke up and naturally felt very hungry. Chapter 2. The cold air poured into her clothes, as if to freeze her blood. Su Li's face was pale, but her expression was calm. She shrank her body and quickened her pace. She ran into the bamboo forest in the mountain with ease. According to the experience of the previous life, she dug out 2 winter bamboo shoots in a short while. She held them in her arms and ran to the clam shell pile by the river to pick up a complete big clam shell. The river was bitterly cold. Su Li squatted by the river and slowly washed the winter bamboo shoots and clam shells. The river reflected her sallow face, and only a pair of black eyes could be called smart and beautiful. Since she could remember, she had hardly eaten a bite of good food. She was 14 years old, but her body was still as thin as a 10-year-old child. Touching her cheeks without scars, Su Li showed a charming smile. She held all the washed things in her arms and went into the mountain again. After about 2 hours, she came down from the mountain and returned to the house. Su Li put the clam shell filled with water steadily on the charcoal brazier. She wrapped the quilt and picked up a few pieces of charcoal from the corner of the wall and threw them into the brazier. It didn't take long for the water in the clam shell to boil. Looking at the steaming hot water, Su Li no longer hesitated. She threw some of the winter bamboo shoots in and continued to peel the winter bamboo shoots. Slowly, the fragrance of the bamboo shoots pervaded the house. Su Li couldn't help swallowing saliva, and her stomach seemed to growl louder. Picking up a branch beside her, she picked up some bamboo shoots that were 70% ripe. Regardless of the heat, Su Li directly sucked them into her mouth and swallowed them after chewing for 2 or 3 times. So tender. Su Li's eyes immediately brightened. She eagerly looked at the bamboo shoots rolling in the water. In fact, there was no taste at all. But for her, even bitter wild vegetables could taste sweet, not to mention winter bamboo shoots which had a better taste. Su Li acted quickly. She picked up the winter bamboo shoots and ate them after a little cooking. In less than an hour, Su Li ate 2 winter bamboo shoots and was 80% full. Suddenly, she had some strength in her body and didn't feel weak anymore. After carefully processing the clam shell, she took out a few herbs picked from the mountain from her arms and fell into meditation. These herbs were all used to improve her body. But she also knew that she was weak. Although she controlled the amount well, she estimated that she would have a fever for several days. Huff huff, after thinking for a while, Su Li felt a burning sensation in her throat, which was a sign of fever. The cold wind for 4 hours was not in vain, not to mention that she was so weak. She directly stuffed the herbs into her mouth and chewed them. Then she wrapped herself in the quilt and lay down again. The tonic worked, and she fell asleep soon. After an unknown period of time, second miss, an anxious and depressed voice sounded in her ears. Su Li opened her eyes reluctantly. She felt that her body was in a stove, and even her brain was about to be burned. Her vision blurred for a moment and finally became clear. She looked up at the old woman who was holding her in her arms. It was Mammy Li, my poor second young mistress. Mammy Li put her rough hands on Su Li's forehead. Tears had already blurred her eyes. She knew clearly what the sudden fever meant. Nanny? Nanny? A faint voice sounded. Mammy Lee was shocked and immediately said with surprise and joy, "Second Miss, are you awake?" Hearing Su Lee's unique name, Mammy Lee's heart ached, but her face became more gentle. She bowed her head and touched Su Lee's face. She whispered, "Second Miss, it's me. I'm Nanny Lee." Su Lee frowned painfully and said pitifully, "Nanny Lee, I want to see my eldest brother. I didn't steal the night luminescent pearl. I want to see my eldest brother." After saying this, Su Lee tilted her head and fell asleep again. She was not pretending, but the efficacy of the medicine was too fierce. Even with her well-tempered willpower, she couldn't resist it. Seeing Su Lee fell asleep again, Mammy Lee suddenly panicked. She called Su Lee several times, but Su Lee didn't wake up. Her heart trembled and she slightly loosened her hands. After a moment, Mammy Lee's eyes became firm. She gently stroked Su Lee's hot forehead and whispered, "Second Miss, I'm going to find my eldest brother for you now." Mammy Lee had no time to pack anything. She turned around and ran to the Su family's mansion. It was getting late. Su Qingtan put down the long sword in his hand and took a deep breath. When he was about to go back to his room to read, there was a noise outside the courtyard. "I really have something important to report to the first master. I'll leave after saying a few words." "How dare you? The first master's yard is not a place for a low-class mammy like you." The guard's stern reprimand made Su Qingtan frown slightly. He didn't like the domineering guards arranged by his mother. But he couldn't disobey his mother's order, so he could only turn a blind eye. He called the maid and said, "Let the mammy in." The maid suddenly looked embarrassed and said, "Master, the madam asked you to concentrate on your study." "You can't. Am I the master or are you the master?" Su Qingtan said coldly, "How long can it take to say one word? Let her in." Seeing that the master was angry, the maid didn't dare to disobey. She quickly got up and went outside to let Mammy Lee in. Mammy Lee got the permission. Her desperate face immediately showed surprise. She stepped into the yard without saying anything. "Mammy Lee, what's the matter?" Su Qingtan saw the excited Mammy Lee and asked in confusion. Mammy Lee was the wet nurse of the second sister when she was a child, so he was also familiar with her. Seeing Su Qingtan's calm expression, Mammy Lee's heart suddenly thumped and her face turned pale. It seemed that the first master didn't care about the second miss as much as she thought. But it had come to this, and she had no other way. She could only kneel down and cry. Chapter 3. Crash. Su Qingtan's body trembled and he couldn't believe it. The teacup fell from his hand and broke into pieces. He didn't even notice that the hot tea splashed on his hand. The maid quickly picked up the handkerchief to wipe it. Su Qingtan shook it off and grabbed Mammy Lee. He gnashed his teeth and said, "Take me there." Along the way, Mammy Lee's hand was hurt by Su Qingtan, but she was very calm. The first master still cared about the second Mississippi. But why didn't he respond to the first madam's behavior? Didn't he know? At this time, in the west courtyard of the Su house, in the exquisite and luxurious wing room, Su Zipei sat at the table. Her pretty face was so fierce that the maids around her kept silent. In front of Su Zipei, there was a charcoal brazier that had been extinguished. "Where is Mammy Lee?" Su Zipei was so angry that her voice changed. The charcoal brazier in her room had never been extinguished in winter. But when she came back today, she found that the room was very cold. How could she, who had always been spoiled, stand it? Mammy Lee had always been responsible for adding charcoal. The chief maid Chun immediately stood out and said, "Miss, Mammy Lee often went to the charcoal room secretly this month. She went out before dawn every day. I don't know where she went." Su Zipei's eyes changed slightly. She immediately sneered, got up and put on her cloak. She hummed and said, "Chun, take a few strong mammies. Let's go." It was not a short distance from the Su house to the hut. Mammy Lee usually had to walk for 2 hours. But this time, it took less than an hour. Su Qingtan was shocked to see the shabby hut that might collapse at any time. The second sister had been living in such a place. What's going on? He clearly heard from his mother that although the second sister was driven out of the family, she just went to a distant relative's house to live. When his father's anger subsided, she would naturally come back. At that time, he was still angry because of what the second sister had done. He didn't think that his mother would lie to him. With a bang, Su Qingtan's white exercise clothes were stained with a layer of dust. He always loved cleanliness, but he didn't know it. He rushed to the bed and saw Su Arya huddled like a stray cat. His heart was suddenly twisted and he couldn't breathe. The second sister was thinner than before. She was almost unrecognizable. Second sister, wake up, big brother is here. Su Qingtan called her softly. Su Li frowned, but didn't open her eyes. Instead, she murmured, I didn't steal the night luminescent pearl. Eldest brother, why don't you believe me? Su Qingtan's heart trembled slightly as the pain spread through the murmur. The subconscious wouldn't lie. Could it be that Nyangqin had wrongly blamed second younger sister? Without time to think about it, Su Qingtan picked up Su Li, who was as light as a feather. He turned back and ordered, Mammy Li, go to the town to find a doctor of the Bai Chao Tang. I will bring my second sister back. Inadvertently, Su Qingtan saw half a bloodstain on Su Li's arm in the sackcloth. His pupils shrank and his right hand suddenly lifted the sleeves. His eyes were immediately filled with horror. Su Li's arms were densely covered with bloodstains. Many new bloodstains were stained with blood and adhered to the linen clothes. Being pulled by Su Qingtan, the wounds were torn again and dark red blood flowed out. Su Qingtan didn't look at her left arm again. He exhaled heavily. When he was about to ask Mammy Li who did it, there was a burst of dense footsteps outside. Su Qingtan looked at Mammy Li, who was in a panic. After hesitating for a moment, he jumped out of the window. Before Mammy Li sorted out her thoughts, she heard the door of the hut was kicked open. Surrounded by four mammies and Chun, Su Zipei came in with a look of disgust. Mammy Li, do you know your mistake? Su Zipei's indifferent words immediately scared Mammy Li so much that her face turned pale. She hurriedly said, I have no choice. If I didn't give her charcoal, she would have frozen to death. Third miss, please save her life for the sake of the blood relationship. Ha ha ha, Su Zipei didn't wait for Mammy Li to finish her words. She laughed crisply, which made Mammy Li feel cold. Second miss. Su Zipei stared at Su Li, who was in a coma on the bed. She walked over and slapped Su Li in the face. Slap. Mammy Li, are you mistaken? The second sister has been driven out of the family. I am the second Mississippi. Hearing this crisp sound, Su Qingtan, who was secretly observing outside the hut, was shocked and couldn't believe his eyes. How could the third sister, who had always been well-behaved, do such a rude thing to her own elder sister? Just as he was about to rush in and ask, a stifled cough made him stop in his tracks. Su Li, who had been pretending to be asleep, seemed to be awakened by the slap. She opened her eyes in time. After seeing the person clearly, her body couldn't help but tremble slightly. There was fear in her pure eyes. She trembled and said, Third sister, what are you doing here again? Su Zipei narrowed her eyes slightly and said with a sweet smile, Sister, you are not obedient. How can you still call yourself the second miss of the Su family? It's not a joke that Dad drove you out of the family. It seems that you have forgotten the taste of the vine whip. Mammy Zheng. I am here. Chapter 4. When Mammy Li saw this scene, she almost fainted with fear. She scrambled to stand in front of Su Li and begged for mercy, please spare my life, third Mississippi. If you beat her again, Arya will really die. Su Zipei frowned slightly. Mammy Zheng got the signal and stepped forward. Mammy Li immediately closed her eyes in fear. Enough. Su Li moved her body weakly and left the protection of Mammy Li. She looked directly at Su Zipei and said, I have taken the blame for you and paid the price of being driven out of the family. Are you still not willing to let me go? Su Zipei was young after all. She was a little confused and said coldly, What are you talking about? How could I steal the night luminescent pearl? Su Li supported her tottering body and said in a hoarse voice with a bitter face, I happened to see it. You went to see cousin Yang that day and handed the night luminescent pearl to him at the Sanha bridge outside the town. Su Li said the location exactly. Su Zipei's face turned pale and she finally panicked. How could it be possible? There was no one around the Sanha bridge that day. How did Su Arya know? Su Zipei squinted her eyes and rolled around a few times. Suddenly, she calmed down and giggled, So what if it's me? You are the sinner of the Su family. No one in the Su family will believe what you say, even my eldest brother will not believe you. Besides, my eldest brother is only 16 years old this year. There are still 2 years before the year of recommendation. This year is the last year for cousin Yang. What I did is the best of both worlds. It is not wrong at all. The best of both worlds. A light shout suddenly came from outside the door, full of anger, So, you should stand up and accept the gratitude of my eldest brother. The sudden voice scared Su Zipei so much that her body trembled. When she recognized the owner of the voice, her ruddy little face turned pale. Eldest brother, why are you here? Su Zipei turned her head stiffly and her lips trembled violently. When she saw Su Qingtan standing at the door, she wanted to faint directly. Did her eldest brother hear all her words? Get out of here. Su Qingtan flicked his sleeves with such great strength that the nanny staggered. He pointed at Su Zipei, and every word he said was like a heavy hammer knocking on her heart, You get out of here, too. I don't have a traitorous sister like you. Su Zipei was already at a loss. If this matter was reported by eldest brother to father, her fate. Second sister was the best example. Mother, only mother can save me now. As soon as she thought of her mother, Su Zipei was immediately motivated. She ran away with the wet nurse in a panic. Seeing Su Zipei's embarrassed look, Su Qingtan's anger subsided a little. He looked back and his eyes were as gentle as spring water, without any hostility. Big brother, Su Li screamed blankly, and her tears fell down like a broken string of beads. Even in her previous life, Big Brother had treated her extremely well. If it wasn't for Big Brother's compassion for her because of her disfigurement, her corpse would have long been exposed in the wilderness. How could she have known about her previous life? However, his eldest brother was deeply poisoned by loyalty, righteousness, filial piety and honesty. He was also a little blind and easily trusted others. Under Su Zipei's manipulation in his previous life, he became a puppet who did all kinds of bad things. In this life, it was clear that things would change with her intervention. Su Qingtan quickly hugged Su Li, and a deep sense of guilt almost drowned him. He coaxed Su Li like a child, and asked Mammy Li to rent a carriage and rushed directly to the Baichao Tang in the town. Su Li had too many injuries, and he couldn't wait for a moment. In the Baichao Tang, first young master of the Su family, your sister, the old doctor hesitated, and Su Qingtan suddenly became nervous. Dr. Qi, you can say it directly. No matter how many precious medicinal materials are needed. Dr. Qi shook his head and interrupted, it's not a big deal that she is ill, but she is too weak. She needs to have a good rest and can't do heavy work anymore. The injuries on her body. Speaking of this, Dr. Qi looked puzzled, and finally couldn't help but say, young master, don't blame me for speaking bluntly. It's just that there are too many injuries on your sister, new and old. Some injuries have even been left a few years ago. If I remember correctly, your sister is only 14 years old this year. Su Qingtan's face became a little ugly, and he said in a deep voice, Doctor, don't worry. I won't let my second sister get hurt again. Dr. Qi stroked his beard with a slight meaning and said, then I will believe child Su this time. Remember to let her have a good rest. If it doesn't work, you can send her to me. Dr. Qi obviously didn't believe him. Su Qingtan took a deep breath, picked up Su Li, who was sleeping soundly, and left the Baichao Tang without looking back. Although he was puzzled about the excessive enthusiasm of the doctor, he had no face to stay here. Dr. Qi stood at the door and shook his head with some regret. This woman was born with beautiful bones, but it was introverted. It was hard to see it if he didn't see it with his own eyes. With this kind of bone, she was a good candidate to inherit his mantle. Unfortunately, the Su family was powerful in the town, and he didn't want to break the current life for the time being. This matter could only be put off. The Su house was only a few miles away from the Baichao Tang. In just a few minutes, Su Qingtan returned home with Su Li, who was sleeping soundly, from the main door. Mammy Li paid the cart driver and followed them step by step. After the fright just now, she knew that once she left the first master, she would definitely be a punishment worse than death. Walking to the west courtyard, Su Qingtan was about to go in. Mammy Li finally couldn't help whispering, "First master, the second miss doesn't live in the west courtyard." Chapter 5. Mammy Li sighed softly and said, "First young master, the second miss has been living with maids in the backyard since she was a child." Su Qingtan's face became more and more gloomy. How many dirty things had his mother and second mother hidden from him all these years? Second mother was second sister's biological mother. How could she bear to let second sister live such a hard life? No wonder second sister had always been thin. It turned out that she couldn't keep up with nutrition. Does my father know about these things? I don't know either. Su Qingtan snorted and walked directly to the east courtyard with Su Li in his arms. Second sister will live in the east courtyard from now on. Mammy Li, you don't need to go back to the west courtyard. Just stay and take care of second sister. Hearing these words, Mammy Li was relieved and said with joy, "Thank you, first young master. I will take good care of the second miss and help her recover." Su Qingtan nodded slightly. He knew Mammy Li was kind. He could rest assured if she took care of second sister herself. There were many empty rooms in the east courtyard. Su Qingtan sent Mammy Li to clean up the room and walked to his room with Su Li in his arms. Looking at the girl in his arms curling up like a kitten, he immediately had a deep love in his heart and unconsciously quickened his pace. But before he stepped into the courtyard, he was stopped by a shout behind him. "Qingtan, wait for first mother." Su Qingtan turned around and saw the first mother in a mink cloak hurrying to him. Behind her, Su Zipei followed silently with red eyes. Seeing Su Li in Su Qingtan's arms, the first mother's eyes changed slightly. She immediately pretended to be distressed and said, "Qingtan, listen to first mother. It's all a misunderstanding. Let me take Arya back to the west courtyard." "Misunderstanding?" Su Qingtan's eyes flashed with anger and he said coldly, "First mother, you'd better explain it to father. Second sister is weak and can't stand the cold. I'll go into the room first." After that, he directly turned and went into the room without waiting for the first mother's response. Madame Zhu came to her senses and her face suddenly turned red with anger. Although Su Qingtan was the son of the second branch, he was filial to her in daily life. But now he contradicted her like this because of that bitch. "Mother, what should I do?" Hearing that Su Qingtan was going to tell her father, Zipei was so anxious that she burst into tears. "Su ma'am." Zhu was very upset. She couldn't hold her temper and scolded in a low voice, "Useless thing. You let slip such a small thing. Let's talk about it when we go back." Su Zipei pursed her lips, feeling wronged. She had never been scolded by her mother since she was a child. Thinking of this, she hated Su Li even more. Madame Zhu took a few glances at the courtyard and didn't hear anything. She immediately left with peace of mind. With that wretched girl's temperament, she should know what to say and what not to say. Su Qingtan first asked the maid to bathe and change clothes for Su Li. Then he ordered the kitchen to boil the medicine and make some light dinner. After feeding the medicine and dinner by himself, he left the bedroom. At midnight, Su Li opened her eyes and saw that the light in the study was still on. She had occupied Big Brother's bed, but Big Brother was not going to sleep with her. Along the way, she was half awake and alert. She didn't really fall asleep until her eldest brother refused to hand her over to Aunt. Although her fever didn't subside, she didn't feel that bad anymore. At this moment, in the dead of the night, she finally had the time to sort out her thoughts since her rebirth. It was much easier to return to the Su family in this life than in the previous life. In the previous life, she came back as a sinner. But in this life, at least in her eldest brother's heart, she was not a sinner. As for others, she didn't care. The Desu town where the Su family was located was one of the towns under the jurisdiction of Qinghe province. Qinghe province was one of the 20 counties of the Han dynasty. The Han dynasty had a vast territory. The emperor ruled the country well and there had been no war for decades. Every year, the satrap of the 20 counties would recommend talents to the imperial court. After passing the selection test in the capital, they could be promoted to nobility and have a promising future. This unique talent selection mechanism was the key to the prosperity of the Han dynasty. People with both ability and integrity always dreamed of becoming a young talent favored by the satrap. Su Qingtan, the eldest brother, and Yang Wei, the cousin, were like this. Last year, after the Su family bribed the people, Su Qingtan was on the recommendation list of the satrap, which was a sure thing. But they didn't expect that Su Zipei stole the most precious treasure of the Su family, the night luminescent pearl, and gave it to the county magistrate, Li Shanbao, who liked jewelry. Besides, she gave it to Li Shanbao in the name of Yang Wei, who was a relative of the Su family. Then, the county magistrate misunderstood and thought that the Su family bribed the people for Yang Wei, so he directly recommended Yang Wei to the provincial office. When the recommendation result came out, the Su family knew that they made a big mistake and wanted to fall out with the Yang family. At that time, Su Zipei suddenly stood out and said that she saw Su Area give the night luminescent pearl to Yang Wei with her own eyes. She hinted to the Su family that Su Area secretly loved Yang Wei, so she did such a stupid thing. Needless to say, Su Area wasted half of the property of the Su family and ruined the future of the eldest brother for 1 year. She immediately became the biggest sinner of the Su family. In the previous life, Su Li was kept in the dark. Later, she knew that it was Su Zipei who stole it. The truth of the matter was also told by Su Zipei in a boastful tone. Today, she wanted to act pitiful and let the eldest brother take her back. After all, only when she returned to the Su family could she continue the road of revenge. But she didn't expect that Su Zipei would suddenly appear, and she didn't expect that Su Zipei would be so cooperative. Su Li's eyes were gloomy and cold. No one knew what she was thinking. Chapter 6. The next morning, Su Qingtan came to the main courtyard. Before entering the door, he saw his father, the first mother and the second mother enjoying breakfast. The first madam, Su Zhu, saw him coming, coughed softly and smiled kindly. "Tan, come and sit down. Today I specially ordered the kitchen to cook bird's nest porridge." The second madam was a little confused. Her son never came to the main courtyard for breakfast. How did Zhu Yan know that her son would come today? Su Qingtan snorted and sat down, saying in a deep voice, "Father, today I come, your first mother has already told me why you come." Su Huanli put down the bowl and chopsticks, looked up and showed a pair of majestic eyes, and interrupted, "This matter should not be publicized. Just let Arya come back. I have punished Zipei to close the door. That's it." His father's conclusion made Su Qingtan's face full of disbelief. Even if the second sister comes back, she will be accused of being a traitor. How can she face others in the future? She has done nothing wrong. Why? Su Qingtan's words became more and more serious, and Su Huanli was also shaken. The first mother saw something wrong and immediately interrupted, "Oh. Tan, you can't say that. If your third sister is also involved, how can you find her in the future? Besides, this matter has passed for more than a month. The storm has already subsided. Maybe others have forgotten it. If we make waves again, our Su family will be a joke again. Su Zhu poked the sore spot of Su Huanli, and the softness in her eyes immediately became hard again. She shouted to Su Qingtan, there is no need to discuss it now. Your first mother is Aria's biological mother. She doesn't mind. Why do you still meddle in it? Su Qingtan only felt a strong anger in his heart. He looked at the first mother's friendly smile and couldn't help but satirize, everyone knows that the first mother is the biological mother of the second sister. Those who don't know might think that the second sister is picked up from the garbage heap. The first madam's face changed dramatically. How dare you? Su Huanli patted the table, and the porridge was shaken out. He said angrily, you come to offend the elders in the early morning. Is this how you use your books? Master, he didn't mean it. He is angry because he failed the recommendation. Second Madame Su Chui, who was watching from the side, quickly stood up and softly advised, apologize to your father. Hearing his mother's words, Su Qingtan took a deep breath, bowed his head and said, Dad, I'm sorry. However, regarding second sister's matter, I hope that father will compensate her. Su Huanli swung his sleeves heavily. Hearing second madam mention the recommendation, his partiality to first madam suddenly decreased a lot. He nodded and said, before Aria recovers, she will stay in your place to recuperate. He turned around and reminded Su Qingtan, who was standing still, hurry up and thank your father. Thank you, father. Su Qingtan knew that he had to settle for the next best thing, so he bowed to the first madam in a hurry. The matter was settled before the first madam could object. When second Furen Chui Shi heard this, an imperceptible smile flashed in her eyes. Although first Furen Zhu Shi still had a smile on her face, her expression had obviously stiffened. In the past, she was very respectful to Lady Chui and did not dare to act rashly. She did not expect that she would suddenly launch an attack today. For her, Aria was like a sharp thorn in her heart. If she was not removed, she would not feel at ease. Aria was really picked up by herself. That wicked girl should cause me so much trouble. Viciousness flashed through Lady Zhu's eyes. After Su Qingtan came back, he stood in front of the bedroom. He was so ashamed that he did not dare to go in for a while. Is it eldest brother? A soft and timid voice came from the room. Su Qingtan's heart ached, but he restored a peaceful smile on his face. He pushed the door and walked in. He asked loudly, second sister, did you have a good rest today? I brought you bird's nest porridge. Coming in and seeing the scene in the room, Su Qingtan was shocked to see Su Li struggling to get out of bed. He quickly put down the food box and rushed to the bed to support Su Li. What are you doing? Lie down quickly. I am going to chop firewood and fetch water. Su Li blinked with puzzlement flashing in her eyes. If I don't chop firewood, Mammy Zheng will beat me. Su Qingtan's eyebrows shook violently and he said softly, you don't need to chop firewood or fetch water here. The only thing you need to do is to lie down and get well as soon as possible. Oh. Su Li tilted her head, and her dark eyes flashed with light. Then she shrank into the warm quilt. Su Qingtan couldn't help but laugh. He touched Su Li's smooth forehead and asked, second sister, why didn't you tell eldest brother that you were bullied? Because Mammy Zheng didn't allow me to say it. Su Li seemed to think of something. She showed fear on her face and said no more. Su Qingtan couldn't help but sigh and said in his heart, silly girl, you are so weak. When I go to the provincial office, how can I feel at ease? He could see that the first mother didn't like Aria very much. His father was busy and the first mother had the final say in the family. After he left, the second sister would definitely be beaten and bullied again. Somehow, Su Qingtan suddenly thought of Dr. Qi of the Baichao Tang. Should he really send the second sister to the Baichao Tang as he said? But how could this be carried out so that father would relent? Chapter 7. Eldest brother, second sister. Suddenly, a childish call came from outside the room. Su Li was slightly stunned and her eyes were in a trance for a moment. Su Qingtan was not the only son of the Su family. There was also Su Qinghao, the fourth son. Like Su Qingtan, Su Qinghao was the son of the second mother. She and Su Zipei were born by the first mother. Because of this, although the second mother's background was not as powerful as the first mother's, her voice in the family was not low. Su Li only felt strange about Su Qinghao. In the previous life, since she made a mistake, she had never seen Su Qinghao again. It was not until she married a poor young master that she heard the news that Su Qinghao was poisoned and died before he was 15 years old. The murderer had never been found out. Second sister, I know you are wronged. Su Qinghao, who looked very similar to Su Qingtan, ran in happily and said with a smile. He wore a snow-white leather cap on his head, and his handsome little face looked extremely adorable against it. Compared with Su Qingtan, Su Qinghao was less steady and more lively. After he came, it seemed that the whole room was full of vitality. Su Qingtan smiled helplessly and explained, because you were driven out of the family, the fourth brother kept crying at home and was grounded by our father for 2 months. Today, he was released in advance, so he must be crazy. Oh, I see. Su Li looked at Su Qinghao with her bright eyes, which made the latter quite uncomfortable. Well, your second sister needs to rest. Go out and play. Su Qingtan said. Su Qinghao immediately became excited and said, then I will go to the martial arts field to wait for you. Hurry up. After Su Qinghao left, Su Qingtan hesitated for a moment and braced himself to say, second sister, our father wants to focus on the overall situation and does not want to announce the truth to the public. For this matter, I will give you some compensation at most. I am useless. Do you blame me? It was undoubtedly extremely unfair to the second sister to deal with it in this way. Su Qingtan looked at Su Li anxiously and was ready to bear Su Li's crying. However, Su Li just nodded calmly with a peaceful and simple smile on her face. Aren't you angry? Su Qingtan couldn't help clenching his fists. The second sister's reaction would only make him feel more guilty. Su Li shook her head slightly, why should I be angry? As long as you believe me, I will be very happy. In the future, he wouldn't have to be beaten or work. It's all thanks to Big Brother's hard work. Big Brother is amazing. Her soft voice melted Su Qingtan's heart. He didn't expect that his second sister would comfort him instead of crying. She was the one who was hurt the most. He must have been blind to judge a book by its cover. Although third younger sister looked delicate and lovely, she was as selfish as first aunt. How could she compare to second younger sister's kindness? At this moment, Su Qingtan's desire to protect Su Li instantly rose to the extreme. He couldn't bear to see such a pure little girl get hurt anymore. Su Li grinned and showed her teeth. The light reflected the cold light. She was not surprised by the result of the Su family. For Su Huanli, Su Zipei was a rare commodity. Before selling her at a high price, he couldn't ruin her reputation. As for Su Area, who was dark and ugly, her status in the Su family was no different from that of a maid. A maid certainly did not need a reputation. In the next few months, Su Li's physical condition improved greatly under the careful care of Mammy Li. Su Zipei was put in confinement, and first aunt couldn't even get in because of Su Qingtan's obstruction. Her life was quite quiet and comfortable. Big brother, I want to learn to read. Su Li, who could get out of bed and walk, came to the study and said. Su Qingtan frowned slightly and was surprised. His father believed that a woman's virtue is a woman's lack of talent. Almost none of the women in the Su family could read. It was impossible that his second sister didn't know that. Why did she offend his father? Can you tell me why you want to learn to read? Su Li blinked her watery eyes and said with admiration, because I want to be a person like Ms. Gu. Puff. Su Qingtan couldn't help laughing. You little girl, Ms. Gu Yan, was a household name. It was not strange that his second sister knew it. Gu Yan was the first female general of the Han dynasty. She was proficient in both literature and martial arts. 50 years ago, she and her husband, Marshal Ling Jinglei, made great contributions on the battlefield. They went deep into the enemy's camp alone and beheaded the commander, which established the victory. A few years later, Marshal Ling Jinglei died on the battlefield, and Gu Yan personally took command of the army. Her fame scared the enemy's army not to step into the Han dynasty. It was a pity that the Ling family was full of loyalty, but there was such a waste. With a sigh, Su Qingtan looked at his sister with an inexplicable look. If you want to learn, I will teach you. But this matter should be kept secret. If father knows it, it will be terrible. After the night luminescent pearl, he gradually realized that what his father said was not right. It was enough that his second sister wanted to learn to read. Su Li nodded immediately and felt relieved. In the previous life, under the guidance of her disabled husband, she could read a small part of the words, so she was lucky to get the inheritance of the poison doctor and practice. Unfortunately, because she couldn't read, her Xiangong was possessed by the devil, and her face was covered with terrible pustules. But at that time, she had lost everything, so she didn't care about the disfigurement. In this life, of course not. Chapter 8. There was a sand table in the study for setting up troops. The ink was very expensive. Su Li couldn't use it, so Su Qingtan used the sand table to teach her how to write. Su Qingtan was surprised to find that his second sister was extremely intelligent. She could understand the simple characters immediately after he taught her once. It took him less than 2 hours to teach her the basic rhyme. Seeing this, Su Qingtan simply asked Su Li to teach herself according to the basic copybook. One of them was reading at the table, and the other was writing in front of the sand table. It was very quiet in the study. The rustling sound did not disturb Su Qingtan's reading, but made him more peaceful and more efficient. In the following days, Zhu, the maid who had been serving Su Qingtan, saw that Su Li went to the study of the first master every day. She was so angry that she stamped her feet and snorted, "How dare she disturb the master's reading? I'll tell the second madam." The second madam couldn't sit still after receiving Zhu's words. She immediately rushed to the east courtyard. "Master, the second madam comes to see you." The maid outside the room passed the message. Su Li immediately erased the characters on the sand table and drew a big smiling face. At the same time, she hid the copybook under the sand table. Su Qingtan secretly praised. When he opened the door and saw his mother, he couldn't help but step aside and asked, "Mother, why are you here?" "I just come to have a look." "Ma'am." Su Chui looked at her son lovingly. When she turned around and saw Su Li in the study, her face immediately became cold. She said, "Arya, why are you so insensible? Your eldest brother's recommendation is coming. You need to concentrate on reading. Since you are in good health, hurry back to the west courtyard." Su Li came over cleverly. Her big black eyes were full of innocence. She gracefully saluted and whispered, "Second mother, don't be angry. I'll leave now." "Ma'am." Su Chui was surprised. She heard from the maids around her that Arya was eccentric and didn't understand etiquette. Now it seemed that the fact was very inconsistent with the rumor. Su Qingtan realized that Su Li had disappeared at the door of the study. He couldn't help but complain, "Mother, why did you drive the second sister away? She is very obedient. She just plays the sand table and doesn't talk. My reading effect is better." "Ma'am." Su Chui became serious and said angrily, "Why? You can't be careless when you enter the county to practice. I do this for you. You blame me for Arya." Su Qingtan hurriedly waved his hand and apologized, "Mother, you know I didn't mean that." "Ma'am." Su Chui looked much better and immediately said, "I will ask Zhu, to keep an eye on you in the future. When you are studying, no one is allowed to come in and disturb you, even how, Do you understand?" "Mother, I understand." Su Qingtan smiled bitterly in his heart. He had just promised his second sister to teach her how to read, and now he was going to break his promise. By the way, how is Arya now? Ma'am? Su Chui asked with concern. But if you looked at her eyes carefully, you would find that there were all kinds of feelings in them except for concern. Mother, second sister's injuries have been accumulated for many years. How can she be healed in a month? Although I can get out of bed now, it will still take a few months for me to recover. Speaking of this, Su Qingtan looked hesitant. Ma'am. Su Chui didn't know her son's thoughts, so she simply said, ask what you want to ask. Don't hesitate in front of me. Su Qingtan's face was slightly red, and then he said seriously, Mother, I want to ask the reason of second sister's injuries. Do you know? Ma'am. Su Chui immediately became angry. Su Arya was not as beautiful as Su Zipei. How could her son be infatuated with her in just 1 month? Tan even suspected her because of her. For a time, ma'am. Su Chui's bad impression of Su Li rose sharply. But she didn't get angry. Instead, she said with a faint smile, What? Are you distressed? Do you suspect that I didn't save her? I dare not. Su Qingtan was shocked and said hurriedly, How could I think so? I just want to ask who hurt second sister. Ma'am. Su Chui sighed and pretended to be helpless, Your first mother is the mistress of the family. I just heard about Arya's things. I didn't know that she had such a hard time. Isn't second sister the first daughter of the first mother? How could she be so cruel? Father doesn't care about it? Su Qingtan asked incredulously. He really didn't want to believe that the Su family was such a cold family. I don't know the details. I heard that Arya made a big mistake when she was very young, so she ended up like this. Well, don't mention these old things. What you need to do now is to study hard and don't let me down. Mother, don't worry. I will. Su Qingtan believed his mother's words and immediately breathed a sigh of relief. Ma'am. Su Chui left the study with Zhu, after a while. Before leaving, she slightly narrowed her eyes. This little vixen was not good-looking, but her ability to seduce people was the same as her mother's. Keep an eye on Arya. Let her contact with Tan less. Chapter 9. Miss, why do you come back so early today? Hearing the footsteps outside, Mammy Li immediately came out of the kitchen in the small courtyard and asked in surprise. Su Li smiled embarrassedly and explained, Nothing. The second mother came to see the eldest brother. It's not good for me to stay there, so I came back first. Mammy, is there anything delicious for lunch today? The second madam came. Mammy Li was shocked. She wiped her hands and took off her apron. Then she quickly came over and grabbed Su Li's hands. She looked at Su Li and asked nervously, Did the second madam embarrass you? No, the eldest brother is here. Su Li smiled foolishly. Alas, Mammy Li sighed softly. No matter how good the first master was, he was the son of the second madam. When the first master understood the ways of the world, maybe his feelings for the second miss would fade. These thoughts had been lingering in Mammy Li's mind for a long time. But seeing that Su Li was rarely so happy, she couldn't bear to say a word. After lunch, Su Li picked up a branch to practice calligraphy in the yard. Mammy Li thought she was playing, so she shook her head and didn't care much. Until the evening, Su Li hung down her sore arms and sighed with relief. After a month's hard work, she had recognized all the words of the first level of Xiangong. Coupled with the understanding of the previous life, she had understood 80%. Now it was no problem to start practicing immediately. But to be on the safe side, she had to wait until she fully understood it. Second sister, the eldest brother came to see you. Suddenly, the door of the small courtyard was knocked. Su Li immediately dropped the branch and opened the door. Seeing Su Li's bright face, Su Qingtan smiled unconsciously. He touched Su Li's forehead and said softly, Second sister, are you angry? My mother just cares about you. She doesn't mean to blame you. Suli shook her head like a rattled drum and said crisply, I'm fine. The second mother did it for the good of the eldest brother. Second sister, you are so sensible. Su Qingtan praised her and suddenly took out his hand behind his back. He said, look what the eldest brother brought you. Su Qingtan held a thick basic copybook in his hand. The cover was much more delicate than the one Suli saw in the study before. Dictionary of Dahan. Suli was slightly stunned. She had seen this copybook. It was exactly the same as the one that the disabled Xiang Gong taught her in the previous life. This is the calligraphy book issued by the government of the Dahan dynasty. The characters and explanations are the most complete. The prefectural government I am going to has a specialized school. This book of calligraphy is no longer of any use to me, so I will give it to you today. Mother won't let you go to the study, so you can only study by yourself. Thank you, big brother. Suli took the copybook carefully as if it was a treasure. The last 8 levels of the mental cultivation method of the Book of Poison and Mysterious Kung Fu not only have a lot of new words, but the meaning of the words is even more obscure and difficult to understand. This copybook is exactly what she needs now. It's just a copybook. Is there a need to be so happy? Su Qingtan couldn't help laughing when he saw his second sister's eyes lit up. This is the first gift big brother gave me. Of course I'm happy. Suli giggled. Su Qingtan was stunned and felt warm in his heart. She was really a silly girl. In the blink of an eye, 2 months had passed. Su Qingtan had been studying poetry and practicing martial arts every day. It was less than a month before the county nomination was announced. Su Huanli specially rushed to the east courtyard to supervise his son's revision, but he was inevitably worried. Last year, for the nomination, almost half of the family property was spent. Even if the county magistrate Li Shanbao knew that it was a misunderstanding, he would never say it clearly. If other families offered a higher price, Tan's place would be uncertain. Master, don't worry too much. The first young master is talented in both literature and martial arts. Even compared with those young talents in the county, he is not inferior. If Li Shanbao goes too far, let the first young master go directly to the county city to participate in the martial arts competition. The old butler comforted him. Su Huanli snorted coldly, what do you know? The water in the county city is deeper. Swords and sabers have no eyes in the martial arts competition. Over the years, many people have left their hands and feet there. Tan is the eldest son of our Su family. I will never allow him to take risks. But Lord Li. The old butler looked worried and sighed, what should we do? Su Huanli's face was very long. If it weren't for the trouble made by Zipei last year, how could his Su family be in such an embarrassing position? Knock. At this moment, there was a soft knock outside the courtyard door. A soft and pleasant voice came, Daddy, Arya brings you snacks. Arya? Su Huanli frowned. The butler immediately explained, before the first madam and the third miss. Second miss was seriously injured and has been recuperating in the east courtyard. It's nonsense. Su Huanli, who had a bad feeling, became angrier when he heard the butler mention his third daughter, Su Zipei. At this time, Su Li pushed the door and came in with a tray. She put the tray on the tea table next to Su Huanli. You are the second miss. Chapter 10. You are Arya. Su Huanli was also shocked. It seemed that he didn't dare to associate the beautiful girl in front of him with the ugly, dark and thin little girl in his memory. After 3 months of careful recuperation, Su Li finally got rid of her ugly appearance. The warm red velvet coat made her white oval face rosy. Her nose was tall and small. Her pink lips were shiny as if they were smeared with honey. Her long black hair was scattered behind her like ink. Her starry black eyes were rippling with the purest color in the world. I didn't expect that after recuperation, second miss would be reborn. She is really a beauty. In a few years, she may be the first beauty in the Desu town. The old butler couldn't help but exclaim loudly. Su Huanli woke up with a start and felt a little regretful. If he had known that Arya looked like this, he would never let Arya take the blame for Zipe. But it was too late now. The more Su Huanli thought about it, the more he felt that he had suffered a loss. The anger in his heart rose again. He even couldn't help rewarding Zipe with half a year's confinement. Grandpa Butler, don't say that. How can Arya deserve this title? Su Li panicked and said flatteringly. Then she seemed to think of something. She smiled and pushed the snacks on the tea table. Daddy, the snacks are still hot. Mammy said they are delicious. Arya wants to bring them to you. Su Huanli's face didn't change, but his heart was slightly warm. He almost forgot the existence of this girl in these years. She still remembered him and didn't forget to bring delicious food to share with him. Thinking of this, Su Huanli felt a little guilty. He showed a kind face and said with a smile, "Okay, Daddy will have a taste." The old butler was surprised. The master never smiled to his children. It was the first time for him to show such a kind look. At this moment, the status of second miss in the mind of the butler immediately rose several levels. Well? What kind of snack is this? What a strange smell. The fragrance of the ruo leaf came into his nose. Su Huanli picked up the snacks on the tea table. It was the first time for him to see the snack wrapped in brown leaves and shaped like an awl. Daddy, I made it myself. I named it Zongzi. Su Li skillfully opened the Zongzi leaves, and the fragrance several times stronger than before immediately filled the whole room. You made it yourself? Su Huanli frowned slightly, and his first reaction was that Su Li was lying. However, now that he was tempted by the fragrance, he didn't get to the bottom of it. Instead, he took the Zongzi peeled from Su Li and bit it. The delicious taste instantly exploded in his mouth. The sticky glutinous rice was wrapped around the fatty meat, but it was fat but not greasy. It had both the fragrance of the meat and the rich fragrance of the egg. After chewing, the texture was even more tender and soft. Su Huanli had lived for so many years, but it was the first time for him to eat such delicious snacks. He immediately ate up a Zongzi. The old butler swallowed his saliva as he watched from the side. The old master never had a good appetite. Even at noon, he would only eat a small bowl of rice. Who would have thought that such a big rice ball would be devoured by the old master in less than a quarter of an hour? All right. Delicious. Thank you for your kindness. Su Huanli laughed and reached out his hand to touch Su Li's head. Everyone loved beauty. His daughter was so filial and beautiful. The more he looked at her, the more he liked her. He even ignored the unhappiness of his daughter's lying. Butler, call the mammy who takes care of Arya. I have a reward. Su Li was stunned when she heard the words, and then she showed a meaningful smile. But in Su Huanli's eyes, she was very innocent. Mammy Li was invited by the old butler in person. She mistakenly thought that Su Li had made a mistake. As soon as she came over, she knelt down in fear and begged for mercy. Master, the second miss is still young. Please forgive her for the sake of the blood relationship. The old butler suddenly laughed and explained, Mammy Li, you misunderstood. The snacks sent by the second miss are very delicious. The old master is very happy. After hearing it, Mammy Li immediately turned from worry to joy. She knelt down and quickly apologized, I was rude. It doesn't matter. You are also good for Arya. Mammy Li, I ask you, which county did you buy the Zongzi from? Su Huanli asked with a smile. This level of food was rare even in the restaurants of the county. Arya was still young. How could she make such delicious snacks? Mammy Li was stunned when she heard the words. She said honestly, Master, I dare not lie. The snacks were indeed made by the second miss herself. Even the ingredients were gathered by the second Mississippi. The rest are all piled up in the yard. Master, you will know it at a glance. Mammy Li's answer suddenly surprised Su Huanli. He hurriedly came to Su Li's yard with the old butler. When he saw the uncooked rice, ruo leaves, ropes and so on in the kitchen in front of him, he had to believe the fact that the zongzi was made by Arya herself. Is it possible that Arya has a rare talent in cooking? Chapter 11. Butler, give Arya more pocket money every month. Arya, concentrate on cooking in the future. You don't need to do anything else. By the way, leave a piece of iridescent cloud refined silk from the silk shop in the provincial town for Arya to make a suit of fitting clothes for her. Thank you, father. After saying these, Su Huanli left in a hurry. Mammy Li was very excited. At first, when Second Miss asked her to find those leaves, she was reluctant. She thought Second Miss was making trouble. She didn't expect to get such a big return. Mammy, help me clean up the kitchen. I'm weak. Ah. I'm coming. Miss, don't knock yourself on the head. Su Li smiled as if she was very happy. But if you looked carefully, you would find that her eyes were as calm as a pool of stagnant water without any ripples. Su Huanli returned to the study and immediately wrote a letter and gave it to the butler. Go to the county town and be sure to send this letter to Li Wei. The butler was shocked. Master, do you mean Mr. Li who runs the Byway building in the county town? He has no friendship with our Su family. This. Yes. If Li Wei can be bribed with zongzi, Tan's quota will not be worried. Su Huanli seemed to be angry with the stupidity of the butler and snorted discontentedly. The butler suddenly realized and said happily, Master, you are so wise. I will set off and send it to him in person overnight. Su Huanli sighed. He didn't expect that the problem that he had been troubled for many days would be solved by Arya. The next day, Mr. Li finished reading the letter and looked at butler Su who was travel-worn. He said doubtfully, Is the zongzi really as mysterious as you said? The old butler laughed and took out a zongzi wrapped in oiled paper from his arms. He said, What you hear is true, but what you see is false. Master specially asked me to bring one for you to have a taste. But the zongzi is cold and needs to be reheated. Mr. Li looked at the brown and yellow lump in the old butler's hand and frowned. But he still waved his hand and let the maid take it and steam it. Master has admired you for a long time. The Byway building opened by Mr. Li is the best restaurant in the county town. Steward Su spared no effort in flattering Li Yuanwei. Although Steward Li knew that Steward Su was just being courteous, every word of praise hit the bottom of his heart. He felt extremely comfortable and the smile on his face grew wider. After a short time, this fragrance. Mr. Li sniffed and turned back. He saw that the maid came with a tray and put the hot zongzi in front. I have tasted countless delicacies, but I have never smelled this fragrance before. Mr. Li was surprised. Butler Su stood on the side and said with a smile, Mr. Li zongzi is zongzi. I have a taste. Steward Su, who was standing at the side, smiled and said, Don't be impatient, Minister Li. How about we taste it first? ZT zongzi, Mr. Su, ZT Li, Su, Master, Zongt, Li, Teat. Butler, yeah, he. With this one bite, Squire Li's eyes immediately widened. He was like a beggar who hadn't eaten for a few days. He ate the whole dumpling in a few bites and didn't forget to lick the grease off his hands, causing the maidservant to almost laugh out loud. After swallowing all the food, Mr. Li was stunned for a moment and sighed. Butler Su's face changed slightly. He thought that Mr. Li was not satisfied with the zongzi, but he heard Mr. Li sighed and said, Butler Su, you really made me suffer. After eating such delicious food, I will eat ordinary food as if I were eating vegetables. Steward Su was overjoyed when he heard this, but his face remained calm and collected. Why does Steward Li say that? Master is going to give the recipe of zongzi to you. In the future, you can eat it every day as long as you ask. Mr. Li could open such a famous restaurant as the Byway building. Of course, he was not stupid. After thinking for a moment, he immediately figured out the cause and effect. He relaxed his eyebrows and coughed slightly. He said with a smile, I don't deserve a reward without doing anything. Your Su family gave me such a big gift. I can help you with something. Go back and tell Master Su that he doesn't need to worry about his son. Butler Su was relieved and said with a happy face, Thank you, Mr. Li. I will go back and send the recipe. Butler Su left in a hurry. Li Wei's eyes narrowed with a smile on his round face. Although he was addicted to delicious food, he was not a person who didn't know what to do. His uncle had discussed with him that as long as the food sent by other families was not more than that sent by the Su family last year, 80% of the recommendation this year would fall on the son of the Su family. This delicious food turned the 80% into 100%. Chapter 12. Master, Master, it's great news. The old butler said as soon as he came back. Su Huanli was happy and asked, Is it done? It's done. The old butler clapped his hands and said, Mr. Li is really fond of delicious food. He agreed at once. Su Huanli smiled coldly and said in a low voice, If this dish is sent to the restaurant, it will definitely be a great profit. He was raised by Li Shanbao. If he doesn't agree, it will be strange. Speaking of this, Su Huanli couldn't help but sigh, it's a pity that our Su family is engaged in the cloth business. Otherwise, Li Wei won't make a lot of money easily. Only then did the old steward's blockhead realize that the patriarch had such intentions. No wonder Li Wei, that bastard, agreed so readily. Master, the recipe, take the ink, paper and inkstone and go to area. Su Huanli said and frowned, it's a matter of great importance. Well, take her to the study and find a suitable excuse. In the small courtyard, Su Li was sitting and basking in the sun. Her eyes were slightly closed and she seemed to be asleep. Suddenly, her ears moved slightly and she opened her eyes. She gently covered the dictionary of Dahan on the stone table with one hand. After that, the old butler pushed the door and came in. Seeing the second miss with a red face, he couldn't help but smile. Second miss, master wants you to go to the study. Su Li seemed to be scared and stayed in place. The butler continued to explain helplessly, it's about the zongzi. Su Li was suddenly enlightened. She stood up and tidied her cotton-padded clothes. She trotted into the kitchen with her long hair swaying. She was very lively. The old butler shook his head and suddenly his eyes fell on the delicate book on the stone table. His face immediately darkened. Grandpa Butler, I'm ready. Su Li came out with the basket in her arms. The old butler asked expressionlessly, Second miss, where did you steal this book? Did you steal it from the first master's study? Su Li trembled slightly and her face turned pale. Tears welled up in her eyes and she said with a crying tone, Grandpa Butler, I have never stolen anything. I didn't steal the luminous pearl. The old butler sighed. He did not expect that his words would remind the second miss of her previous miserable experience. He could not help but soften his tone. Tell Grandpa Butler, where did this book come from? Big brother gave it to me. Su Li blinked and her eyes were bright. Eldest brother said that he was leaving. Give me the book to remember him. When the old housekeeper heard this, he immediately sighed deeply. The phrase, seeing something reminds me of someone, was definitely said by eldest young master. Second miss was illiterate, so it was impossible for her to say such cultured words. Grandpa Butler has misunderstood you. The old butler gently touched Su Li's head for fear of scaring her again, but don't let the Lord see it. He will be unhappy. Su Li nodded, and then said dejectedly, Unfortunately, I don't know any of the paintings on it, and I don't know why you gave it to me. When the old butler heard this, he was stunned and revealed a thoughtful expression. Did the first young master hope that the womenfolk in his family could read? At this time, Su Li took out a zongzi from the basket and handed it to the old butler. She smirked and said, Here you are. Grandpa Butler hasn't eaten the zongzi made by Arya. The old butler came to his senses and immediately pushed it away, saying, "How can I eat such expensive things? Second miss, keep it for yourself." Su Li pursed her lips and forced the zongzi into the old butler's hands. She whispered, "This is a gift that Arya secretly left for you. Grandpa Butler has worked so hard. What's wrong with eating a zongzi?" The old butler did not know whether to laugh or cry, but he grinned and put the zongzi into his arms. He had never found that the second miss was so considerate to servants before. He clearly scared her just now, but this little girl did not care at all. The third miss ordered him around like a slave. Even if he did it perfectly every time, she didn't say a good word. It seemed that he had to think more about the second miss in the future. After secretly making up his mind, the old butler saw the copybook on the stone table again. His eyes suddenly brightened and a plan came to his mind. As soon as Su Li and the old butler left, the west courtyard received the news of Zhu Yan sat nervously at the head of the bed, with cold sweat on her forehead and panic in her eyes. Is it possible that the Lord found something? Zhu Yan thought about it, and the more she thought about it, the more frightened she felt. Except for that matter, she could not think of any other reason for the old butler to ask Arya to go to the main courtyard alone. No, I can't panic. If I leave, what about Zipei? Halfway through packing, Zhu Yan gritted her teeth and went to the dressing table. She opened the secret compartment under the table and fumbled for a moment. Then she took out a white jade pendant. The jade was warm to the touch, pure and flawless. Even an idiot could see that this jade was extremely precious. The pattern on the jade pendant was not complete at first glance. It seemed to be the lower body of an animal. But Zhu Yan pondered for many years, but she did not know what it was. Zhu Yan stared at the jade pendant and calmed down after a while. This jade pendant was exactly what she got from Arya when she picked it up. She had never seen such a precious jade pendant. Arya's family background must be extremely extraordinary. But she also checked that there was no birthmark on the girl's body. Chapter 13. In recent years, I have found that the origin of the jade pendant is mostly from Yunjing. I have to hurry up. There is not much time. If Zipei really married into a big family, she, as the biological mother, would become the adoptive mother, but her status would rise. How could Su Huanli offend her? Zhu Yan smiled, as if she saw the beautiful future. Thinking of this, Zhu Yan took out all the jewelry she had accumulated for many years and hurried to the pawn shop in the town. In the study, the old butler wrote down the method of making zongzi in detail. Su Huanli was shocked when he heard that a small zongzi was so delicate. His second daughter was really a genius in cooking. Unfortunately, there was no restaurant in the Su family. Otherwise, how could he let the large amount of money flow into Li Wei's pocket? Su Huanli sighed in his heart. After Su Li finished the recipe, she neatly arranged the rest of the zongzi. Then she saluted and left obediently. The old butler put down the brush and blew the paper to wait for the ink to dry. Seeing that the master was in a daze, he hesitated for a moment and stretched out his head. He said cautiously, "Master, what do you think about letting second miss learn to read?" Su Huanli frowned subconsciously. Then he came to his sense. His eyebrows were immediately full of anger. He opened his mouth and scolded, "Nonsense! Let Arya learn to read, absolutely not." The old butler was scolded, but he didn't panic. He continued to say in a steady tone, "Master, it's been many years since those things happened. Other than a few old fellows, no one remembers them. Even the government has set up a women's school in order to select talents from women to make contributions like Mrs. Gu." Speaking of this, the old butler took a deep breath and lowered his voice a little. "Second miss is extremely smart. Maybe she is also a talent for reading. She also needs to learn to read to study recipes. If there is a female scholar or a female royal chef in our Su family, it will bring honor to our ancestors. Master, you will make a great contribution." Hearing the second half of the words, Su Huanli's expression finally eased. He was very excited. The old butler was right. But the shadow of being cheated in the early years couldn't be dispelled by a few words. The old butler looked at the master's expression and immediately added, "Master, I just brought second miss here with the excuse of learning to read." Su Huanli's expression changed slightly and he scolded, "You old guy, are you really scheming against me?" While scolding, Su Huanli actually laughed and sighed, "Forget it. In a blink of an eye, half of my body will be buried. Since Arya needs to learn to read, let her learn to read. Tomorrow, you will go to the town to invite the teacher." "Yes, master is wise." The old butler chuckled and left the study. Su Huanli was helpless. This old guy was more and more good at pretending to be ignorant. Although he was saved by him and became the Su family's housekeeper, he had never figured out this person's background. He didn't even know his name. He only knew that his surname was Li. For more than a decade, Mr. Li had never done anything beyond his authority. Over time, Su Huanli let down his guard and really regarded Butler Li as his own person. The next day, Butler Li quickly invited the teacher. When Su Huanli saw him, he was surprised and quickly greeted him. He held his fist and smiled, "Isn't this Dr. Qi? How did you find the time to visit my humble residence today? Your presence really brings light to my humble residence." Dr. Qi's medical skills were superb and famous in the town. "Hi. Master Su, please don't say that." Dr. Qi smiled, "Today I am here to be a teacher." Butler Li added on the side, "Master, the teachers in the school all said that Dr. Qi is not only good at medical skills, but also very good at teaching. Besides, Dr. Qi has more time than those teachers." Su Huanli nodded and said, "That's good. Mr. Qi, please have a cup of tea and then go to see my daughter." Dr. Qi nodded and walked in with a smile. Seeing Dr. Qi go away, Su Huanli frowned and immediately whispered, "Is Dr. Qi reliable?" "Reliable. Absolutely reliable." With an exaggerated expression on his face, Butler Li said quickly, "I heard from those teachers that Dr. Qi taught many high-ranking officials in those years. Now I am old and live a leisurely life. I just want to try my luck. I didn't expect that I really invited this great master." Su Huanli was overjoyed when he heard it. He quickly ordered, "Bring Qinghao here. Teaching 1 is teaching, teaching 2 is also teaching. The reward must not be low. Let Dr. Qi feel the sincerity of our Su family." "I understand." Butler Li immediately went to the account office to get the money. After Su Huanli and Dr. Qi chatted for a while, they walked to Su Li's small courtyard in the east courtyard. Su Li was practicing the first hurdle of Xiangong in the room. Suddenly, she frowned and opened her eyes. At this time, Mammy Li outside the door shouted, "Arya, come out quickly. Master and Dr. Qi are here." "Dr. Qi." Chapter 14. Qi Xianqing, the miracle-working doctor, thought that his identity was well covered, but Su Li was not the one who was kept in the dark. She had seen him with her own eyes in the military camp. However, at that time, he looked at her with pity and more disgust. And she was just one of the prostitutes in the army. It turned out that this person had been living in seclusion in the remote Desu town. No wonder no one could find him in this world. As soon as Su Li went out of the room, Qi Xianqing's eyes immediately brightened. Su Huanli didn't notice it and quickly introduced, "This is my daughter, Su Arya. Are you satisfied with her?" Qi Xianqing pretended to look at her for a moment and nodded slightly. "Second Miss Su is born beautiful and must be very intelligent. I will stay to teach her for a few days." Su Huanli was very surprised and quickly cupped his hands and said, "Thank you, Mr. Qi. By the way, I heard that the eldest son of your mansion is about to go to the provincial office. Can I see him?" Qi Xianqing's eyes flashed and he smiled kindly. "Why not? It's really a blessing for Tan to be instructed by you." Su Huanli quickly sent someone to invite him. Qi Xianqing waved his sleeves and said, "Hey. I am the guest. It's unreasonable for the master to see me. I will go to see him." Teachers were very eccentric. Su Huanli didn't think it was strange. He immediately obeyed him and let the butler lead the way. Su Li stood quietly in the yard. Her eyes flashed with thoughts that were extremely inconsistent with her age. She didn't follow them. Unfortunately, the people walking in front didn't look back and didn't see this scene. In the study, Su Qingtian felt strange when he saw Dr. Qi. He was still thinking of ways to ask him to protect the second sister. He didn't expect that Dr. Qi came by himself. "Haha, since you want to instruct Tan, the butler, and I won't bother you." Su Huanli left consciously and even took the girl out. "First Master Su, you know my purpose." Qi Xianqing came straight to the point. Su Qingtian nodded slightly and said, "I am very happy that you can come. Second sister is in a bad situation at home. Please help her." "Haha." Qi Xianqing stroked his white beard and said, "I am already the teacher of your Su family. And I will come to see her every day. If you didn't protect the little girl from any harm during the recovery period, I would have taken her to Yunjing." "Yunjing?" Su Qingtan's body trembled slightly and his eyes were filled with shock. That was the foot of the emperor. Not everyone could go there. He recommended that if he could reach the end of the test, he could enter Yunjing. Exactly. Qi Xianqing saw that Su Qingtan was shocked, so he continued to laugh and said, "I am old and lack a successor. Su area is just right. You just need to know that area inherits my ability and has a promising future." Su Qingtan's eyes were slightly red. He bowed deeply and said, "Second sister is too innocent. You didn't even tell me when you were bullied. I'm not qualified to be your big brother. Today, I am indebted to you for allowing her to study medicine. Please take good care of second sister and let her live happily." Qi Xianqing nodded and agreed. He thought in his heart, this child's eyes are clear, he values friendship and righteousness. In the future, his career would be extraordinary and he would definitely be able to go far. He is not like Su Huanli, who only cares about fame and fortune. I don't know how he taught such a son. However, what he wanted to teach Su area was not only to study medicine, but also the supreme. Qi Xianqing curled his lips and smiled meaningfully. In the next 3 days, Qi Xianqing came to teach Su Li to read and write on time every morning. Su Li didn't hide her skills and learned quickly. Qi Xianqing was overjoyed. He didn't want to test Su Li for a few more days. He turned around and settled the identity of the teacher with Su Huanli. On the 4th day, there was Su Qinghao in the small school temporarily arranged by the Su family. "How, Mr. Qi is a famous teacher in the town. Our Su family hired him with a lot of money. You don't go to school in the future. You can study with your second sister. Don't let me down." When Su Qinghao was sent to the school, Su Huanli told his little son in his ear. "Got it, Dad." Su Qinghao replied crisply, but he was happy in his heart. It was so good to have second sister to study with him in the future. Su Huanli was relieved and left. Qi Xianqing looked at Su Qinghao who was sitting in the seat and frowned slightly. But when he saw Su Li who was reviewing her homework next to him, he relaxed his eyebrows. "Well, I will turn a blind eye. I heard that there is another daughter in the Su family. Maybe there will be one more in the future. I will teach others as usual. I will teach them the inheritance in private." After making up his mind, Qi Xianqing opened the calligraphy book and continued to teach. 2 hours later, Qi Xianqing collected the book and left. Su Qinghao couldn't help it. He immediately stood up and pulled Su Li and said, second sister, let's go to the martial arts field to play with the sand." Su Li didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She said, "You go. I will be scolded by my father." "Oh," Su Qinghao ran out disappointedly. The eldest brother would not be scolded if he went there. Sure enough, second sister was different from the eldest brother. After cleaning up the house, Suli went out with the calligraphy book. But she found that Qi Xianqing was still standing at the door, as if waiting for her. Was he going to show his cards? Chapter 15. Little girl, come with me. Qi Xianqing waved his hand and was slightly excited. After a few days of contact, he had completely approved Suli. This little girl was simple, kind and affectionate. She was also very diligent, not to mention her qualifications. He was truly an excellent candidate to be a disciple. Even the flaw of being slightly older could be completely ignored. When they walked to a secluded place, Qi Xianqing immediately said, "Little girl, do you know who I am?" Suli blinked and replied cleverly, "I know. You are a famous doctor and teacher in the town." Haha. Qi Xianqing laughed heartily and said, "You are not only famous in the town. You will know that the name of Qi Xianqing is not only famous in Dahan country. Are there other countries besides Dahan country?" Suli tilted her head and asked. Her focus was obviously different. Qi Xianqing looked stiff and said with a wry smile, "Of course. When you grow up, you can see more sceneries when you go out." Then, Qi Xianqing looked refreshed and said, "Little girl, if you want to be outstanding, there is a better way than learning literature. That is to practice Xiangong." After that, there was silence in the air. The old man and the young girl stared at each other. After a while, Suli asked curiously, "Master, what is Xiangong?" Qi Xianqing smiled bitterly. He forgot that he was facing a little girl who had no knowledge. People who practiced martial arts would faint with excitement when they heard the word Xiangong. But this little girl didn't respond at all. Xiangong is a practice system beyond martial arts. If you practice it to a high level, you can be extraordinary. Well, let's talk about it later. Are you willing to worship me as your teacher? Qi Xianqing looked at Suli, who was confused, and finally chose to ask Suli in another way. Isn't Arya your student? Suli was still confused and laughed in her heart. This old guy actually wanted her to be his successor. This is different. I have many students, but there is only one disciple. That is you. Qi Xianqing smiled like an old liar and said, "As long as you worship me as your teacher, you will not be bullied in the future. I will teach you everything I know. When you grow up, you can cure diseases and save people. You can do whatever you want." Suli's eyes immediately became bright. "I do." Qi Xianqing wiped his cold sweat. It was not easy to accept this disciple. Under the guidance of Qi Xianqing, Suli performed the ceremony of apprenticeship. Although there was no tea, Qi Xianqing did not care. After kowtowing, Suli stood up. Qi Xianqing looked at Suli with more kindness. He took out a booklet that had been written for a long time from his arms. "Disciple, spend 3 days to understand and memorize it. 3 days later, I will ask you how much you understand." Suli took it and obediently said according to the address that Qi Xianqing taught before, "Yes, master." Ha 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 ha, Qi Xianqing left with a smile. Suli suspected that if she was not there, the old guy would dance happily. Suli held the booklet in her hand and narrowed her eyes slightly. She had obtained the poison doctor's inheritance by chance and did not have a master. She would be a fool if she didn't worship a master. Moreover, she also wanted to see what kind of mysterious skills other than the poison scripture and mysterious skills were like. Thinking of this, she opened the booklet. There were only 4 words on the first page: Ghost Valley Meditation Direction. Then she opened the general principle. Suli suddenly widened her almond-shaped eyes. She was shocked for the first time since her rebirth. Wasn't this the poison scripture? Qi Xianqing was from the same school as her. Back to the small courtyard, Suli didn't have dinner and finished reading the whole book until late at night. She took a deep breath according to the words of the poison scripture in her mind, and her eyes became clear. I see. This mental method of Xiangong is incomplete. Only the first half is complete. No wonder Qi Xianqing went to the dirty place like the military brothel. Maybe he got the news of the second half of the poison scripture and rushed there. Unfortunately, she got the second half of the poison scripture. In the previous life, Qi Xianqing did not see the complete poison scripture until he died. No wonder it is very difficult for me to practice. I thought the first hurdle of Xiangong was the sixth hurdle. Su Li looked strange. It was impossible to practice the sixth hurdle of Xiangong directly by skipping the fifth hurdle. But she succeeded in both her previous life and this life. Did Qi Xianqing see something? Su Li shook her head and temporarily suppressed her doubts. Then she carefully studied the book in front of the oil lamp. It was inevitable that there would be problems with the incomplete mental method. Now that she had completed the 14th hurdle of Ghost Valley meditation direction, she decided to practice from the first hurdle to be on the safe side. In the previous life, she practiced to the 7th hurdle. Although she was possessed by the devil, she had rich experience. It was only a matter of time for her to practice the first 5 hurdles of the perfect practice method. A month passed. Su Qingtan left home for the county town. The second madam was reluctant to let him go. She cried for a while and came out after a few days. Su Li learned very fast. She had recognized all the characters and even memorized a lot of rare characters. She began to read poems and books under the guidance of Qi Xianqing. Her Xiangong made rapid progress. She had practiced to the second hurdle, but she showed that she had just practiced to the first hurdle. Even so, Qi Xianqing was still shocked and murmured, "She is born with beautiful bones. She is really extraordinary." It took me half a year to practice to the first hurdle. When Su Li was trying to advance to the third hurdle of Xiangong, Zhu Yan finally came back. What? How is it possible that the Lord let Arya learn to read? Chapter 16. Didn't the Lord always dislike the womenfolk in the family to be literate? Why did he suddenly let Arya be literate and specially hired a teacher for her? This was simply unreasonable. The second miss is smart and can read quickly. The Lord has always praised her. It is said that the first madam has a good daughter. Her personal nanny observed her expression and congratulated her. Although the first madam didn't like the second miss before, now the second miss was so favored by the Lord, the first madam's attitude should change. She looked down and saw Zhu Yan's face was livid. Zhu Yan was so scared that she was stiff instantly and opened her mouth. She didn't know what she said wrong. It seems that the Lord didn't find that Arya is a bastard. Zhu Yan was relieved and slowly combed her hair. Her face in the bronze mirror was gloomy. This time, she spent a lot of money, but she still failed to find out the origin of the jade pendant. The original shop that made the jade pendant had long been gone. Nobody knew where it went. If she wanted to find out the origin of the jade pendant, her money was still too little. However, how did the wicked girl persuade the Lord? I persuaded him countless times, but he didn't listen. He could only let Zipei learn to read secretly. Zipei was like this. What qualification does she have to sit in the school and read? Crack. The comb was broken into 2 pieces. The mammy was frightened and breathed lightly. Why was the first madam so angry? Where is Zipei? First madam, the third miss will be confined for 4 months tomorrow. Zhu Yan gritted her teeth and her heart was in a mess. Why was everything not going well recently? Who was against her? At night, Zhu Yan was so angry that she didn't eat or sleep. She immediately ordered someone to open the door and release Su Zipei in the next morning. I am suffocated. Where is Su Arya? I am going to kill her. Su Zipei's hair was disheveled like a madwoman. She didn't know where to vent her anger after being confined for 4 months. Zhu Yan saw her daughter's appearance and trembled with anger. She shouted, "Mammy, help her dress up. Don't you feel ashamed? Mother, you are here. Why didn't you come to see me for a month?" Su Zipei's vigor immediately weakened when she saw her mother. She burst into tears. Zhu Yan sighed and grabbed her daughter's hand to go back to the room. She whispered, I did it for you. If it is successful, you may even marry the emperor. Zhu Yan revealed a little. Su Zipei widened her eyes and stopped crying. She asked, really? Of course it's true. Hurry up and dress up. We're going to see your father later. When she was dressing up, Su Zipei, who had been isolated from the news for 4 months, finally learned that her second sister had gotten father's permission to learn to read openly. I went out to look for you, but I don't know who took advantage of me. But it doesn't matter. Since Arya can learn, you can definitely sit in the classroom. You don't have to sneak around. Pearl, you are much smarter than Arya. Zhu Yan comforted him softly. Su Arya was a maid who did rough work. Zipei was carefully trained by her since she was a child. In the future, she would definitely become a phoenix. But second sister, how could she be worthy of sitting in the same classroom as me? What a bully. Su Zipei's eyes turned red again. She felt so wronged. I know I don't deserve it, but your father is blind. Zhu Yan looked at Su Zipei, who was dressed up, and nodded with satisfaction. She said, let's go and reason with your father. Su Huanli was busy checking the accounts of the silk shop. Suddenly, the voice of the old butler came from outside. Master, the first madam and the third miss are here. Su Huanli stopped writing and twisted his eyebrows. Today was 4 months old. Zipei should come out. Master, I brought a lot of money back to my parents' home. It can almost make up for the gap in the silk shop. Zhu Yan's first sentence after entering the door was to take advantage of Su Huanli. When Su Huanli heard that the money was in place, he didn't want to blame her anymore. When he saw Su Zipei, who was dignified, virtuous, and had a delicate face, holding Zhu Yan's little hand, his anger disappeared. Forget it. Let's forget about the past. Su Huanli changed his seat and sat down. The old butler made tea and handed it to him. You just came back from your parents' home. Why are you so anxious to see me? Father. I also want to be literate. Su Zipei lowered her head and mumbled. Her little face was red, which was cute. Master, you see, Arya also begins to be literate. You can't attend to one thing and lose sight of the other. Otherwise, only Zipei can't read among the 4 siblings. Zipei can't raise her head in the future. It turns out to be this matter. Su Huanli relaxed his eyebrows and said, I asked the butler to invite a teacher and set up a school in the east courtyard. If Zipei wants to be literate, just go there. But, don't offend the teacher. Remember? Su Zipei saw that her father easily agreed. She was full of joy and answered crisply, yes, father. Zhu Yan also calmed down a lot. It seemed that the master had figured out something recently. It was not because of Arya. After they left, the old butler laughed and whispered, Master, you are really clever. In this way, no one will doubt the second Mississippi. Su Huanli was expressionless, but fear flashed in his eyes. Since Zhu Yan didn't go back to her parents' home, where did she go? The first madam was very careful. I didn't find her specific whereabouts. Su Huanli sighed deeply. He even needed to guard against his family. He was really tired. Suddenly, Su Li's pure and brilliant smile appeared in his mind. The depression in his heart dissipated instantly, and his face showed a trace of relaxation. Chapter 17. Outside the school, Su Zipei held a calligraphy book and quietly poked her head out of the door. 3 people immediately appeared in her sight. They were the old teacher, the 4th brother, and a very beautiful strange girl. I don't even have the clothes made by the rainbow cloud forging. Whose miss is she? It's strange that the second sister is not here. Su Zipei muttered. At this time, Qi Xianqing's reprimand suddenly came from the door. Who is making noise outside? Come out. Susie Pei was so scared that her body trembled. The book in her arms fell to the ground and her figure was revealed. When Qi Xianqing saw Susie Pei, he breathed slowly and said in a deep voice, "Third Miss, the old butler has already said that you must wait in the school at 7 o'clock every day. Today you offended the school. Don't do it again. Find a place to sit down." "Yes, sir." Susie Pei replied with grievance, but she was angry in her heart. He was just a poor scholar invited by her Su family. He dared to be fierce to her. She must tell her mother later and let her mother help her to get revenge. Qi Xianqing didn't care whether Susie Pei had learned all the words or not. He asked her to recite poems at the beginning. She made several mistakes and was beaten on the hand. But Su Li didn't make any mistakes. Susie Pei was more angry, but she didn't dare to show it. She still remembered her father's advice. Soon a class passed. At noon, Qi Xianqing got up and left. "The master of the martial arts club is still waiting for me." "It's too late." Su Qinghao ran away anxiously. Susie Pei opened her mouth but didn't say anything. She looked back and saw that the beautiful girl whose skin was fairer than her was packing up the books. A friendly smile appeared on Susie Pei's face, and she said softly, "Don't worry. My name is Susie Pei." "What's the name of the beautiful sister? Have you ever seen my second sister? She is the one who wears linen clothes and looks dark and thin." "Third sister, the teacher is still waiting for me outside. I won't talk with you anymore." Su Li turned her head and chuckled. She left lightly. Susie Pei sat stupidly in the same place and didn't even know how to speak for a while. "Mother." "Oh no, Arya." As soon as she returned to the west courtyard, Susie Pei pushed the door of the first madam in a panic. The first madam was embroidering and her finger was almost pricked by Susie Pei's sudden scream. She let out a hiss and put down the silk cloth. She raised her head and said angrily, "How many times have I taught you? Don't panic when something happens. Do you look like a lady from a noble family when you rush in like this?" Susie Pei curled her lips and said with grievance, "But Arya changed so much that I couldn't recognize her. I almost thought she was a lady from a big family." "Mother, quickly go and take a look." "Miss of a large family?" The doctor's scalp was slightly numb. He couldn't sit still after being touched. He immediately put on his cloak and went to the east courtyard with his people. Since Su Qingtan left home, few people came to Su Li's courtyard. Only Qi Xianqing occasionally came to tell her to practice. After lunch, Mammy Li made a pot of scented tea and put it on the stone table in the courtyard as usual. Second Miss liked to bask in the sun in the yard while drinking tea. Suddenly, bang! The door was knocked open and Mammy Li came out of the kitchen. When she saw the first madam and others, her face was as pale as paper. She was in a cold sweat and said, "Greetings, First Madam and Third Mississippi." The first madam was expressionless. Looking at the fragrant scented tea on the stone table, she was more and more unhappy. She sneered and said, "Naughty girl, come out. You even drank flower tea. You really don't change. Where did you steal it from this time?" Mammy Li was furious and felt wronged for Su Li. Why did the first madam treat second miss as a thief? Susie Pei was the villain. But how could she contradict the first madam as a maid? She could only bite the bullet and said, "First madam, second miss is not in the courtyard. Mr. Qi just called her out. I don't know when she will come back." Before she finished speaking, a voice came from behind the first madam, "Mother, why are you here?" Everyone looked back and saw Su Li standing at the gate of the courtyard with the dictionary of Dahan in her hand. Mammy Li complained secretly. If second miss came back a little later, she might be able to escape. The first madam was stunned and stared at the fair-skinned and luxuriously dressed person standing at the gate. She was confused for a moment and then realized that it was Su Arya. It was Su Arya. They hadn't seen each other for a few months. She had become so beautiful. Even without makeup, her face was much better than Susie Pay's. "Mother, why don't you speak?" When the first madam heard the word mother, she was so disgusted that she wanted to vomit. Her mind was in a mess. She tried her best to torture Sue Area in order to make her look like neither a human nor a ghost, so that her relatives couldn't recognize her. But now Sue Area's temperament was clearly more noble than Susie Pay's. As long as her relatives were not fools, they would recognize her immediately. It was all because of the little bastard, Su Qingtan, who intervened. Everything she had done was in vain. "Area, have you recovered? The East Courtyard is the place where the men of the Su family live. Come back to the West Courtyard with me." The first madam didn't wait for Su Li's answer and asked the mammy to rush into the room to pack up her clothes. Mammy Li couldn't stop her. Su Li's clothes were not very soft. Soon, Mammy Zheng came out with a small parcel and threw it to her. Su Li opened it and found that the silver in it was gone. Even the slightly more expensive silks were gone. What she saw were only sackcloth and sackcloth. "Let's go." "What are you waiting for?" Chapter 18. Su Li smiled and turned her head into a pitiful look. She obediently walked in the front, just like before. Mammy Li followed her with trepidation. She kept looking around, hoping to meet the old butler. Unfortunately, she didn't meet him on the way to the West Courtyard. Bang! The wooden door of the big wing room in the West Courtyard was closed. The first madam turned around with no expression and said lightly, "Mammy Li, thank you for taking care of Area these days. Area will be taken care of by Mammy Zheng in the West Courtyard. Mammy Zheng, give her some silver and let her go. If she doesn't go, beat her and drag her out." Crack! The thick wooden stick stood in front of her. Mammy Li was so scared that she trembled violently. Such a big stick could break her legs, but she didn't take the silver and still stood in the same place. Mammy Zheng sneered and was about to smash the stick. At this time, Su Li's voice came. "Mammy Li, go away. The farther you go, the better." Su Li stood in the middle of Mammy Li. Her voice was weak, but Mammy Li felt extremely warm. She didn't know where the strength came from. She suddenly pushed Mammy Li away and hugged Su Li tightly. If she left, the last wish of the first miss would not be fulfilled. "Mr. Qi will come soon. You leave first. Don't get close to the Su house. Come back in 2 or 3 days." Mammy Li suddenly heard an extremely cold voice. She was stunned and her body became stiff. She was shocked. Was it the voice of the second miss? But the second miss had always been gentle. How could she have such a cold tone? She was gently pushed away by Su Li and left the Su house in a trance. Her mind was in a mess. Only Su Li's words were extremely clear. After Mammy Li left, Su Li breathed a sigh of relief. She immediately felt that her arms were empty. The dictionary of Dahan was snatched by Su Zipei, who looked proud. "This copybook is very delicate. Second sister, don't you feel hot when you hold it? It should be stolen from my room," Su Zipei said with a smile. Suddenly, she frowned and said hurriedly, "Mammy Zheng, take off her clothes. Don't dirty the cloud forging." "Yes, miss." Su Li put on the linen clothes and stared at Su Zipei with her dark eyes. She held the dress she had just taken off and couldn't put it down. "Come with me, Second Mississippi. You've been hiding in the East Courtyard for the past few months, and the work in the West Courtyard has already piled up like a mountain." Mammy Zheng sneered. Su Li's face was pale and her body trembled slightly. Her pitiful appearance made many servants who had just arrived feel distressed. "Use the best honey locust to wash it properly. I don't want to smell my second sister's scent when I wear it." After Su Li left, Su Zipei threw the clothes to the maid and held her mother's arm. She smiled with bright eyes and said, "Mother, you are so amazing." The first madam smiled and said nothing, but she was calculating in her heart. The Lord probably invited the teacher for Qinghao, not for Arya. The teacher was not a meddlesome person. He would not care about one less Su Arya. What's more, she sent a smarter daughter to please him. Tomorrow, she would give him some silver, and the matter would be over. Thinking of this, First Madam could not help but smile in relief. Now that the wretched girl was in her hands again, she could finally have a good night's sleep. Spring was about to pass, but the weather was not hot. It was very foggy in the early morning. Su Li looked dull. She wore a thin linen dress and sat on a small wooden stool in front of the well. Beside the well, there were pots of dirty clothes that were taller than her. The musty smell made many maids who passed by cover their noses and leave. Achoo! Mammy Zheng just got up and went out with a big sneeze. She couldn't help but murmur why the weather was not warm. She wrapped her clothes and came to the well. She was immediately shocked. The wretched girl sat here and drank dew all night. She didn't even wash a piece of clothes. Mammy Zheng immediately pulled a long face. She picked up the rattan whip beside the well and slapped it on the ground. She sneered and said, "Second miss, you have been in the East Courtyard for 2 months. Don't you even know how to wash clothes? It seems that second Miss's memory is too bad. I will help you to consolidate it." Crack! Crack! Mammy Zheng swung her right hand with full strength and whipped on Su Li's back, making a burst of sound. A strong pain hit her heart. Su Li groaned twice, but the corners of her mouth hooked up. This touch almost occupied 80% of the memory of her previous life. It was really nostalgic. After a while, Su Li's back was already red, but she didn't make any sound after the 2 muffled groans. Mammy Zheng was very angry. The more she beat her, the thicker her skin became. She used to make a pleasant scream, but now she was like a dead person. It was no fun to beat her. However, she was also afraid that Madame would blame her if she beat the second miss to death. So, she threw away the rattan whip and turned around to take a bowl of black cornbread, which was harder than a stone. She squinted and smiled, "Second miss, since you don't want to wash clothes, I can't force you. This is your dry food today. Don't get it dirty." Chapter 19. "Oh, second miss, I'm so sorry. It's inconvenient for me to walk. But it's just a little dirty water. Second miss can eat it after washing it with the well water." Mammy Zheng took a few steps back and said, "I have to wake up the madam, so I can't help second miss wash it." As Nanny Zheng spoke, the unknown fire in her heart burned again. Because Su Li didn't look up at her from beginning to end, and she didn't show any resentment or despair. It was as if she was a clown, performing a funny monologue on the stage. "Damn it! Damn girl, your eldest brother is far away in the county town. No one will save you this time." Mammy Zheng was so angry that she left with a twist of her buttocks and left. Su Li looked up at the back of Mammy Zheng. After a while, she smiled gently. The blood behind her dripped down the wooden stool. 2 hours later, in the school of the East Courtyard. Qi Xianqing came a little early, and there was no one in the school. He sat at the desk for a moment, and a smile suddenly appeared on his wrinkled face. Aria's Xiangong was advancing very fast. In a few days, she would break through to the second hurdle. At that time, he could teach her the secret method of swordsmanship and practice the skill of attack with the mental method. After she was proficient, she could be regarded as a little senior in the Jianghu. If he took her to see his old friends next year, those old friends who had not found the inheritor would be envious. Ha ha ha, Qi Xianqing couldn't help laughing. At this time, footsteps came from outside the door, and he immediately restored his usual serious image. Su Qinghao came and jumped. When he saw Qi Xianqing with his head tilted, he immediately adjusted his posture and saluted, "Good morning, sir." He looked up and saw no one in the school. He suddenly felt strange and said, "Hey, second sister is slower than me today. Was Arya going to break through to the second hurdle today?" Qi Xianqing was surprised and smiled more deeply. He said, she must be delayed by something. Qinghao, come and sit down first. Don't be lazy in the morning class. Su Qinghao was surprised and felt that the teacher was too kind today. But he didn't think much. He went to sit in his seat and took out the book to read. After a while, Su Zipei also arrived. Seeing that the teacher was a little absent-minded, she didn't go to disturb him. She picked up the book and read like Su Qinghao. An hour later, Qi Xianqing was expressionless and still did not announce the end of the morning class. But he was very anxious. Could it be that area encountered difficulties in breaking through? That shouldn't be the case. There was no bottleneck in the first 3 stages of cultivation. Could it be that she was too lazy to come today? Impossible. Although he did not fully understand the lass after these 2 months of interaction, he knew that she was not a lazy person. That's strange, Qi Xianqing frowned. Su Qinghao read so much that his mouth was dry. He couldn't help but remind, Sir, the morning class has exceeded a quarter of an hour. As he spoke, he glanced at Su Zipei and muttered, why is it that third sister is here instead of second sister? Third sister, do you know why second sister didn't come today? Just when Su Zipei was about to brush it off, she saw the teacher looking at her with a serious face. Her heart beat wildly and she said guiltily, I don't know either. If the students aren't here today, I won't be teaching. Qi Xianqing got up impatiently and said, Su Qinghao, follow me to your second sister's yard. Su Qinghao was also very worried. He immediately got up and said, yes, sir. Su Zipei was anxious when she heard it. She wondered why her mother hadn't handled the matter well. She quickly stopped Qi Xianqing and said, Sir, I heard that second sister has recovered and is no longer recuperating in the east courtyard. Qi Xianqing didn't know the structure of the Su house. He nodded and asked, do you know where she lives now? This. Su Zipei looked embarrassed, I don't know. Su Zipei was about to make up a reason to delay time. Su Qinghao suddenly pulled Qi Xianqing's sleeve and shouted, Sir. You have to save my second sister. My eldest brother said that if second sister is not in the east courtyard, I should ask you for help. My eldest brother said many times that you have to save my second sister. Qi Xianqing and Su Zipei changed their faces at the same time. Damn Su Qingtan, he even saved this. Su Zipei scolded Su Qingtan in her heart and looked at the gate anxiously. I have been teaching happily for the past 2 months. I even forgot the situation of this girl in the Su family. Qi Xianqing wanted to give himself 2 slaps. He pulled Su Qinghao's hand and said in a deep voice, take me to see your father. I want to make it clear to him in person. Su Qinghao turned around and ran, but his sleeve was pulled by Su Zipei. He almost fell down. He turned back and said angrily, Third sister, what are you doing? Su Zipei was so anxious that she didn't know how to explain. At this time, a voice that made her feel at ease finally sounded, Dr. Qi, calm down. What happened? Why are you so anxious? Chapter 20. Qi Xianqing knew that his relationship with Su area was not suitable to be exposed, so he had to hide his anxiety. He coughed slightly and said lightly, Today, the second miss did not come to the school. My rule is that if the students are not all, I will not teach. Please tell me where the second miss is, so that I can go and have a look. The first madam's smile was slightly stiff, and she secretly scolded the pedantic old man for having such a quirk. Sir, please step aside and have a talk. The first madam stretched out her hand and pointed to a path. Qi Xianqing looked slightly cold, but he still walked over. Sure enough, he still wants money. But if he can solve it with money, I will accept it. The first madam snorted slightly. In order to trace the origin of the jade pendant, she spent all her money. She could only hope that Qi Xianqing's appetite was not too big. Wow! You are all bad people. You don't save the second sister. I am going to find my father. Su Qinghao saw the two left, and suddenly burst into tears. He shook off Su Zipei's hand and rushed out of the yard. The first madam was shocked and turned back. She said eagerly, "Catch him." A group of maids and mermaids immediately caught up with Su Qinghao. No matter how Su Qinghao cried and begged, no one let go. The first madam breathed a sigh of relief and said, "Zipei, look after your brother. Don't let him out of this yard before I come back." Su Zipei's hand was hurt and she was angry. When she heard her mother's words, her eyes brightened and she said with a smile, "Mother, don't worry. I will take good care of the fourth brother." The first madam nodded slightly and walked with Qi Xianqing to the deep garden of the yard. She pretended to sigh and said, "Sir, you don't know. Arya will not come to the school in the future." Qi Xianqing frowned and was angry in his heart, but he said lightly, "Oh, why?" Zhu Yan looked embarrassed and squeezed out a tear from the corner of her eyes. She said sadly, "Sir, it is related to the private affairs of the Su family. It is not suitable for outsiders to know." Qi Xianqing smiled slightly, "I am not a nosy person." The first madam looked happy. Qi Xianqing said again, "However, today's matter is related to my student, so I have to do it reluctantly and offend you." Zhu Yan's face immediately became uglier than pig liver. The old man didn't finish his words. Was he deliberately playing with her? How could he put a money-losing person in his eyes? Zhu Yan thought so in her heart, but she didn't show it on the surface. She said sadly, "Not long after I gave birth to Arya, I was pregnant with the second child. But the girl was really a jinx. She could crawl and bump when she was only 3 months old. My son was killed because of the bump. Because of this, the old master flew into a rage and punished him. Madam has said so much. What does it have to do with Su Arya's literacy?" Qi Xianqing sneered in his heart. What a little punishment. She could be so cruel to her own daughter. As expected, a woman's heart was the most vicious. How could it not be related? Zhu Yan seemed to be anxious and spoke faster. "I heard that the students taught by the teacher are all people with both ability and integrity. Arya is unfilial and stupid. She is not qualified to be the teacher's student." Speaking of this, Zhu Yan said with a smile, "On the contrary, Zipei is beautiful, smart, and filial to her parents. She is the best candidate to be your disciple." He. A chuckle came from Qi Xianqing's mouth. Zhu Yan didn't know why, but she heard the former's tone was still flat. "Madam's words are reasonable. But whether she is qualified to be my student is up to me, not you. No matter how extravagant Madam's words are, this old man will only treat it as wind blowing past my ears and not listen to a single word." As soon as he said this, the field immediately fell into silence. Zhu Yan was stunned for a long time, and then she reacted. She was so angry that she laughed out and said coldly, "Sir, let's get to the point. How much money do you need to let this matter go?" As soon as she said this, it was Qi Xianqing's turn to be stunned. He opened a pair of turbid old eyes and his eyes were full of disbelief. The first madam of the Su family actually wanted to buy him with money? Qi Xianqing waved his sleeves and turned away. The direction was actually the main courtyard of the Su family. Zhu Yan was shocked and immediately caught up with him. She shouted while chasing, "Sir, don't run. We can discuss the price again." Ouch! A stone blocked the road, and Zhu Yan fell down carelessly. The skin on her face was broken. Ouch! God damn it! This old man is going to die soon. How can he run faster than a rabbit? Zhu Yan climbed up and sat on the ground. She held her legs and cried out in pain. Her eyes were full of tears. "No, I have to go back to the west courtyard to arrange it. Come on, help me up." Qi Xianqing used his body movement to go all the way to the main courtyard of the Su family. When he approached the gate of the courtyard, he slowed down. He put on a calm smile and said politely, "Is the master of the Su family here?" I am Qi Xianqing. When Su Huanli heard the voice outside the house, he immediately put away the account in his hand. He got up and opened the door. When he saw Qi Xianqing, he couldn't help but wonder, shouldn't you be teaching in the school at this time? Why do you have time to come here? Arya didn't come to the class today, so I didn't teach the class. Listening to Qi Xianqing's hearty laughter, Su Huanli frowned slightly. Oh, is there such a thing? Sir, the children of the Su family are never lazy people. I will go to Arya's yard to have a look. Chapter 21. Hearing that, Su Huanli's face immediately became as ugly as it could be. What was Zhu Yan doing again? Butler! Su Huanli shouted, and the old butler with sweat on his head immediately hurried in from outside the courtyard. Master, what can I do for you? The carriage to the silk shop broke down, and I am in a hurry to find a coachman. Seeing that the old butler's cotton-padded clothes were stained with sweat, Su Huanli swallowed the blame in his mouth and waved, You go to the west courtyard and bring Arya here. The second miss went back to the west courtyard. The old butler was shocked. When he saw Qi Xianqing, he suddenly understood something. His eyes were stained with anxiety. He ran to the west courtyard without saying anything and left the matter of the carriage behind him. Head of the Su family, Arya is my student. I am really worried about her, so I go with the butler to have a look. Qi Xianqing waved his sleeves and left with the old butler directly. Su Huanli's eyes widened. He specially asked the butler to keep an eye on Qi Xianqing. How could the dirty linen of the family be spread out? But this old scholar left him directly and ran to the west courtyard. It was really unreasonable. Su Huanli was so angry that he immediately chased after him. From the main courtyard of the Su house to the west courtyard, they had to pass through 2 large courtyards and a long corridor. It usually took about 15 minutes to walk slowly. The old butler and Su Huanli were so anxious that they arrived at the gate of the west courtyard in just a quarter of an hour. Crack! As soon as they stepped into the west courtyard, a loud whip came from the southwest of the courtyard, which made the 2 old people have goosebumps. No, my apprentice is in danger. The 2 looked at each other and unconsciously launched their martial arts at the same time and flew to the southwest. After passing through a circular arch, they saw a pile of dirty clothes. An old mammy with a strong back and a bear's waist was raising the whip in her hand and was about to break it. Stop! Qi Xianqing was so angry that his eyes almost popped out. In a hurry, he directly grabbed the end of the whip. A hidden force passed through the whip to Mammy Zheng's hand and exploded. Mammy Zheng was directly blown away and crashed into the piles of dirty clothes. The stench spread. Butler Li was vigilant. If he didn't expose himself this time, he would not know that Qi Xianqing was a martial arts practitioner. Who are you? Qi Xianqing squatted down to check Su Li's injury. His eyes were full of distress. Su Li seemed to be invisible to him. She stared at the cornbread that was crushed in the muddy water. Answer me. Butler Li's tone became tough. Qi Xianqing said impatiently, Li Yin of Shuolo Tower, who was once famous in Wulin, was hiding in a small family as a steward. Li Yin's turbid pupils shrank, and he subconsciously took a few steps back, his whole body tensed up. He didn't expect that the person in front of him would see through his identity just by revealing his movement technique. Could it be that the group of people still hadn't let him go? Don't worry, kid. The Yinma cult has already been exterminated. No one will care about a nobody. Under the calm look of Qi Xianqing, there was a volcanic anger that was about to erupt. Now I want to know, is it the first madam of the Su family who hurt my disciples so much? As soon as he finished speaking, there was a sound of disordered footsteps outside the round arched door. However, Li Yin had 10,000 questions in his mind, so he could only temporarily suppress them. Passing through the courtyard gate, Su Huanli walked in the front, followed by the first madam, the second madam, Su Zipei, and Su Qinghao. The whole Su family basically came. Master, 2 madams. Butler Li Yin saluted and retreated to the side. What the hell is going on? Area. Su Huanli's hands trembled, and he walked to Su Li, looking at the blood splashed on the porcelain doll's white face and the disordered bloodstains on the snow-white skin behind her. He thought of the little face that smiled brighter than the sunshine in the courtyard. His calculating eyes unexpectedly shed tears. He was distressed. Master, Zhu Yan covered her mouth in surprise, and there was an unconcealable panic in her eyes. Aria's position in the master's mind was so important. How could it be possible? The second madam was also surprised, and she looked at Zhu Yan with more fear. Although she had heard some rumors, it was the first time for her to see Su Li being beaten bloody. My student! Qi Xianqing screamed, and it seemed that he just reacted. A pair of trembling old hands gently wiped the blood and tears on Su Li's face. He said, "This. Who is she? She is so cruel and vicious. She is an unpardonable sinner. How could she hurt a 14-year-old girl so badly? I will report it to the government." Li Yin was stunned. If he hadn't seen Qi Xianqing slap Mammy Zheng, he might have been kept in the dark at this time. His acting was really good. Li Yin lowered his eyes, as if he didn't see it. Qi Xianqing didn't want to expose his identity. He had lived incognito for many years, so he naturally didn't want to. You can't report it to the government, or the reputation of our Su family will be ruined. Hearing Qi Xianqing's shout, Su Huanli became sober a lot. The first madam's pale face suddenly recovered a lot of blood. It seemed that the master still cared about the relationship of many years. Qi Xianqing seemed to be so angry that his face turned pale. He gasped and said, "Good. Good. Good. Su Huanli, I didn't expect that the dignified Su family was a place of hiding filth. It even harbored a vicious woman who abused a girl. I have been upright all my life and will never abandon it." As soon as Qi Xianqing said that, Zhu Yan, who had just recovered, immediately disappeared. She trembled and screamed, "You old man. It's not your turn to care about the family affairs of our Su family. Aria is my daughter. Even if I beat her to death, it's my business. Get out of here immediately if you know what's good for you. Otherwise, I won't let you go out of the gate of the Su house." Scholars were all weak. Zhu Yan thought that the old man in front of her would be like those scholars. After being threatened by her, he would take the money and leave obediently. But Qi Xianqing didn't change his face after hearing that. Zhu Yan's heart thumped, and she felt that a catastrophe was coming. Qi Xianqing breathed out a turbid breath. He glanced at Su Huanli and Zhu Yan fiercely and said in a deep voice, "If there are still teachers who will teach the children of your Su family tomorrow, I will be in vain. As for Su Qingtan's official career, I will stop him even if I have to risk my life. If such a ruthless family member becomes an official with great power, it will be the misfortune of Dehan country. Goodbye. Take care, master." Su Huanli grabbed Qi Xianqing at once, but he found that his hands and feet were cold. Even his heartbeat was scared to stop. If Qi Xianqing really spread the news, their Su family would be finished. "What's the matter, head of the Su family?" Qi Xianqing shook off Su Huanli's hand and said with obvious disgust. Su Huanli took a deep breath and kept silent for a long time. Then he turned around and said, "Madam, didn't you say that your mother's family was in a hurry? Set off for home tomorrow. Zipei will go with you." "Master." Zhu Yan's voice trembled and she was about to cry. "Master even drove her away for the wicked girl." "Father, I don't want to go. I don't want my mother to go." Su Zipei hugged Su Huanli's waist. She pouted and her eyes turned red. Her pitiful appearance was really lovable. Su Huanli was moved. But when he saw Qi Xianqing's cold face beside him, he could only shake off Su Zipei and said coldly, "It's settled. And Mammy Zheng, send someone to send her to the government." Mammy Zheng, who just climbed out of the pile of clothes, heard this sentence. She was scared and immediately screamed, Master, please spare my life. The first madam asked me to do this, and the third miss. I can only follow the orders. Second miss, please spare my life. You are the kindest. Dr. Qi. The harsh words filled everyone's ears. Su Huanli's face was burning. Qi Xianqing knew that it was the right time. The Zhu family was powerful. If he forced Su Huanli again, Su Huanli couldn't come up with a better way to deal with it. Immediately, he looked a little relaxed and said, "Head of the Su family, I didn't force you. An aristocratic family with both virtue and conduct should do this. Please forgive me for what I said before." Su Huanli reluctantly twitched the corner of his mouth. His smile was uglier than crying. He saw the power of pedantic scholars. However, he felt that it was not bad to let Zhu Yan, who had always been overbearing and strong, suffer a loss. "Master, how should we deal with the second miss?" Butler Li reminded him timely. Su Huanli stared at him and almost scolded. Butler Li touched his sore spot. He wanted to wait for Zhu Yan to come back, and then let Arya apologize to her to ease the relationship. But now it was impossible. Qi Xianqing was a little surprised. Li Yin seems to care about Arya subconsciously. Good. However, even if Li Yin didn't raise this problem, he would raise it. After all, he acted for Su Li for so long. Su Huanli met Qi Xianqing's eyes, and he was inexplicably afraid. He pondered for a moment and couldn't help but sigh. Forget it. In for a penny, in for a pound. Arya suffered a lot this time. The first madam was confused for a moment. She will never do it again. Su Huanli's tone was very strict. Zhu Yan was so angry that she couldn't say a word. Since she married into the Su family, when did she suffer this kind of suffering? There is a yard in the north of the west courtyard, called Jinyuan Court. Arya will move there later. When Su Huanli just finished, Zhu Yan jumped up like a cat whose tail was stepped on and screamed, "No! Master, you said that Jinyuan Court is reserved for our son. How can we give it to Arya?" Su Huanli blamed Zhu Yan for not seeing the situation clearly, but he couldn't say it clearly. He could only say helplessly, "When Wu Er is born in the future, we will build another yard. This matter has been settled. It's useless to say more." He turned around, and his expression had completely returned to normal. He said, "In addition, I need Dr. Qi's help to treat the injury. Don't worry. I always protect my shortcomings. Since Arya has become my student, I will take care of her." Qi Xianqing said and turned his head and said, "Butler Li, please prepare a carriage to send me to the Bai Chao Tang. There are all kinds of medicinal materials there. It is easy for me to treat Arya's injury." Butler Li nodded and left silently. Qi Xianqing also held Su Li, who was as light as nothing, and followed him. Chapter 22. It's all for the reputation of our Su family. Madam, you have to suffer for a while. In addition, how about you send Mammy Zheng to the government office? Zhu Yan was relieved by Su Huanli's kindness, but she was still cold on the surface. Because of the jade pendant, she often took money from home, which had caused her parents displeasure. If Su Huanli neglected her again, her life would be more difficult. When Mammy Zheng heard that she was arranged by Madam, she looked happy. But when she thought of what she had done before, she was scared and broke into a cold sweat. She quickly thought of a remedy. "Sister, I will go back to the yard first," Zhu Yan said to the second madam and turned around with a gloomy look. Mammy Zheng shrank beside her like a turtle. After the group of people went away, there were only Li Yuelian and her maids in the yard. It's really a war. Li Yuelian sighed and said to herself, but there is no winner in this war. The Lord is not a man on both sides. Zhu Yan's evil deeds will be gossiped. Dr. Qi intervenes in the family affairs, which will make others fear him. No. Li Yuelian's indifferent expression suddenly became serious. She forgot that there was another person who was a complete winner. Because she was too small, she even ignored her before. However, Arya did not take the initiative from beginning to end. It was too exaggerated to say that it was the little girl's plot. It was just a coincidence. Li Yuelian shook her head and smiled. Then she turned and left. Mammy Zheng followed the first madam back to the wing room, trembling. When the first madam rebuked other mammies, she was even more nervous. The first madam treated them well, but her words and deeds today were a real betrayal. "Mammy, how many years have you been with me?" Zhu Yan's calm tone seemed to be brewing magma. As she said this, the air was stagnant. Plop. Mammy Zheng knelt down without saying a word. Her fat shook the slate. "Madam, I was really wrong. I was also confused at that time. I didn't mean it. Considering that I have served you for so many years, please spare my life." Zhu Yan was silent. Mammy Zheng was more anxious. She climbed to hold the first madam's legs and kept begging for mercy. Because she knew the background of the Zhu family, she knew that she had no other way but to beg for mercy. Slap. Zhu Yan slapped him hard and fast. Half of Nanny Zheng's face swelled up at a speed visible to the naked eye. "I clearly told you that you could only use the vine whip in the morning and evening. Why did you whip her when the sun was high up in the sky?" After being beaten, Mammy Zheng felt relieved. She touched half of her face and said, "I've always followed Madam's order. But today, I don't know why that girl went crazy. She even put the broken cornbread in the muddy water into my mouth when I was not paying attention." There is such a thing. The surprise flashed in Zhu Yan's eyes. The girl never knew how to resist. Did she become enlightened under the training of Su Qingtan in the past few months? Silly girl, why didn't you resist when you were beaten? In the Baichao Tang, Qi Xianqing applied medicine for Su Li and blamed her with disappointment. "The Xiangong that the master taught you is very powerful. Don't be afraid of the old mammy." "I understand." Su Li lowered her head and suddenly raised her head. Her black crystal eyes were pure and flawless, flashing with grievance and depression, "But she was sent by my mother. What did I do wrong? Why doesn't she like me? That vicious woman treated you so badly, but you still treat her as your mother." Qi Xianqing was so depressed that he couldn't breathe, but he didn't know how to comfort her. Finally, he could only carefully wipe away Su Li's crystal-like tears. He coaxed her for a long time like coaxing his granddaughter. He didn't go to rest until Su Li fell asleep. Today's matter is over for the time being. Hearing what the miss said, Mammy Zheng was relieved. But Zhu Yan said again, "Go back to the Zhu family with me tomorrow. But before that, I need you to atone for your crime." "Miss, please tell me. I will do anything for you." Getting the opportunity to regain trust, Mammy Zheng's eyes lit up with hope. "You only need to put this thing into Arya's mouth tonight, and then you will complete my task." Zhu Yan took out a jade bottle and put it in Mammy Zheng's hand. Mammy Zheng was slightly shocked. Madam actually asked her to kill people. "Don't worry. This medicine is colorless and tasteless. It cost me a lot to get it. Even Dr. Qi can't find any clues. Everyone in the town knows the layout of the Baichao Tang. I don't need to say more, right?" Speaking of this, Zhu Yan smiled and gently said in Mammy Zheng's ear, "Don't worry. As long as this thing is done, you will be the #1 confidant of Zhu Yan. In the future, you will definitely enjoy endless glory, splendor, wealth and rank." Mammy Zheng was very excited. Thinking of the loose layout of the Baichao Tang, she hesitated for a moment and finally nodded firmly. Sitting in the carriage specially prepared by the madam, Mammy Zheng's heart beat wildly. While fantasizing about the good life in the future, she forced herself to recall every corner of the Baichao Tang. There is only one guest room in the Baichao Tang. Su area must be arranged there. As long as we climb over the wall from the east, we can get there directly. Time passed quickly. The carriage stopped in front of the Baiwei building. It was already late at night, and there was no one on the street. Mammy Zheng got off the carriage and looked at the empty street. She unconsciously swallowed. Maybe the voice was too loud and scared herself. After calming down, she recognized the direction and ran to the Bai Chao Tang under the cover of the night. In less than a quarter of an hour, she arrived at the east wall. There are many places on the wall. It is not difficult to climb over. After observing, Mammy Zheng plucked up the courage to climb. But the practice process was more difficult than she imagined. After climbing for about 10 minutes, she saw the bare top of the wall. Soon. Mammy Zheng was happy and plucked up the strength to put one hand on the top of the wall. Suddenly, a white and delicate hand stretched out from the darkness and pinched Mammy Zheng's throat as fast as lightning. Mammy Zheng was terrified and struggled violently. But the seemingly weak and slender hand just clasped her throat like a steel bar and didn't move at all. The dark clouds dispersed, and the bright moonlight sprinkled over the earth like mercury. A girl in a thin shirt sat on the top of the wall and smiled against the moonlight. She held a fat woman who was disproportionate to her size in her hand. With the moonlight, Mammy Zheng finally saw the person in front of her, which almost scared her out of her wits. Su Arya. Sure enough, I got something. Su Li smiled softly and said to herself, I didn't poison Qi Xianqing in vain. Poison Qi Xianqing in vain? How did the wicked girl know that I would come? Was she really Su Arya? Mammy Zheng was frightened at the moment. She was about to speak, but the hand on her throat suddenly tightened and she rolled her eyes. Su Li looked cold. After looking around, she carried Mammy Zheng with one hand like carrying a broken sack and swaggered out of the Desu town on the street. The mottled shadows of the forest in the middle of the night looked extremely horrible. Mammy Zheng was suffocated and almost fainted. She suddenly felt that her throat was loosened and fell to the ground. She immediately gasped and coughed because of the cold air. After recovering some strength, she immediately turned around and fled. But she was suddenly pushed behind and hit the tree directly. Her head was bleeding. Mammy Zheng, it's not right to escape. A long time ago, when you pushed me, when you hit me, when you pushed me, I never tried to escape. Su Li came with a smile like a night elf, but in Mammy Zheng's eyes, she was a full devil. Don't come over. Su Arya, no, second miss, I just listened to Madam's order. I didn't deliberately bully you. Mammy Zheng finally recognized the reality and begged for mercy in fear. Su Li gently stretched out her hand. Mammy Zheng was so scared that she closed her eyes. She waited for a long time, but found that Su Li didn't beat her. Let me see what my mother gave you. Mammy Zheng's chest was empty. She wanted to stop Su Li, but found that Su Li's hand was surprisingly fast. The jade bottle appeared in Su Li's hand like a phantom. Who the hell are you? Su Arya is a mean girl who can be scolded. How can she know martial arts? Oh, I know. You are not Su Arya at all. Mammy Zheng was stimulated to be crazy and kept talking nonsense. Slap. A slap hit her far away and made her completely sober. She lay in the rotten leaves and didn't move. Su Li unhurriedly opened the jade bottle and sniffed it. Then she smiled even more. It turns out to be the mind-rotting pill. People who are poisoned by it will die within one day, just like a sudden death. She squatted down and put the jade bottle to Mammy Zheng's mouth. Mammy Zheng immediately tried her best to raise her head and shut her mouth. She kept begging for mercy through her teeth. Don't kill me. It's Madam's order. I am just a cheap life. Don't kill me. Su Li slowly took back the jade bottle and corked it. Mammy Zheng was relieved and collapsed to the ground. Of course, I don't want to kill you with the mind-rotting pill. It is very valuable in the black market. Su Li said. Mammy Zheng suddenly widened her eyes and made a sound of ho-ho. She wanted to say something, but finally, she didn't say anything and died. Su Li gently withdrew her hand from Mammy Zheng's heart and wiped all the blood on Mammy Zheng. She looked calm as if she had killed a chicken. She pitifully said to herself, if I had a weapon, I wouldn't have to dirty my hands. After burying Mammy Zheng on the spot, Su Li lightly returned to the Bai Chao Tang. At this moment, the sky was already white. She hummed an inexplicable short song and shuttled between the medicine cabinets like a butterfly flying through flowers. After a short time, she compounded the antidote for the poisonous smoke and fed it to Qi Xianqing. Then she reapplied medicine to the cracked back wound and went back to the guest room to sleep. The entire process took less than 4 hours. An hour later, Qi Xianqing woke up. He got up and stretched himself. He sighed, with the little girl beside me, I even sleep more soundly. After washing, Qi Xianqing opened the door of the guest room. When he saw Su Li still sleeping soundly, he couldn't help but smile warmly. Then he turned around and compounded the medicine. 2 days later, the injury on Su Li's back improved and she could barely walk. Su Li immediately asked to return to the Su family. Qi Xianqing couldn't resist the repeated requests of his precious apprentice and had to send her back. As early as yesterday, Mammy Li returned to the Su house and waited in the Jinyuan court. Within a day, the Jinyuan court had been cleaned up. After walking around, Qi Xianqing was very satisfied. Apprentice, remember that you are injured now. Don't practice these days, and don't fight with others, so as not to affect the wound. As he said, Qi Xianqing laughed first. If Arya could fight with others, it would be strange. On the delicate pearwood bed, Su Li lay on the edge of the bed and nodded obediently. After Qi Xianqing left, Mammy Li came over at a loss and nagged, Miss, the layout of the Jinyuan court is so exquisite. The books, bedding, wooden furniture, and tea set are all fine. I didn't expect that there is such a place in the Su family. Chapter 23. Mammy Li shivered and became silent. She didn't know whether she was thinking of the past or Su Li's cold reminder a few days ago. Mammy, I just want to stay in the Jinyuan court quietly now. It's better not to be bullied. If I am bullied, I want to have the strength to fight back. It's not like before when I couldn't even control my own life and death. I don't want to experience that again. Speaking of this, Su Li showed a bitter smile and said, Mother, is really cruel. I thought that as long as I don't resist, even if I have a hard life, I will not die. So I have been silent and did not resist. But I am still too naive. Mammy Li was moved. It turned out that the second miss was not stupid, but she was too stupid. Because of the cold words before, she was afraid of the second Mississippi. But thinking carefully, the second miss thought about how to survive every day at such a young age. If she was not clever, how could she live to the present? And before, the second miss repeatedly rescued her from the hands of the first madam. Where could she find such a kind-hearted miss? For a moment, the surging sense of guilt almost drowned her. Second miss. Mammy Li grasped Su Li's little hand tightly and said, No matter what you say or do in the future, I will support you unconditionally. Su Li's eyes turned and she put the other hand on Mammy Li's hand. She smiled like spring. Finally, she had the first loyal pawn. It was not easy. Mammy Li's tears shone. At this time, she couldn't help but think of the old miss who had passed away. If she could use her wisdom to escape, maybe she would not die so miserably that year. The next day, the sun was shining. The Su house returned to peace. Qi Xianqing taught Su Li to read as usual and temporarily put aside the Xiangong cultivation. This made Qi Xianqing very angry. Arya was about to break through the second hurdle, but Zhu Yan made trouble and postponed the matter. Second sister, you look much better today. After the class, Su Qinghao jumped from his position and came to Su Li. He pretended to touch Su Li's forehead like a little adult. Su Li slightly raised her mouth and smiled. She was about to touch Su Qinghao's head with her hand, but Su Qinghao was pulled away by a hand. Su Li looked up and slightly restrained her smile. She showed a respectful expression and saluted, "Hello, second mother." "You too." Li Yuelian looked at Su Li with a complicated expression, and there was always an inexplicable fear in her heart. She said, "Qinghao has a martial arts class, so I can't stay here any longer." Su Li nodded obediently and waved her hand, "Goodbye, second mother." Li Yuelian looked a little relaxed and left with Su Qinghao. Su Area was so well-behaved and sensible. Was it really a coincidence before? She was paranoid and thought too much. After 7 quiet days, Zhu Yan and Su Zipei finally returned to the Su house that night. Looking at the brightly lit Jinyuan court, Zhu Yan gnashed her teeth with hatred. What a good nanny Zhang. She even ran away regardless of anything. Stupid girl, I'll let you live for a period of time. Jin Garden belongs to my son. No one can take it away from him. Hearing the news that Zhu Yan came back, Su Huanli was surprised. Zhu Yan came back so soon. He thought that Zhu Yan would stay in her parents' home for more than half a month. Zhu Yan had no other choice. She was already a married girl of the Zhu family, which was like spilled water. Moreover, recently, she not only often asked for money from her parents' home, but also went back to the Zhu family to eat and drink for free. She had already caused a lot of gossip. Su Zipei couldn't stand crying all the time. Finally, she had to be thick-skinned and go back to the Su family first. "Madam, I'm afraid that Mr. Qi is still angry. Don't go to the school to make trouble. Don't go to the Jinyuan court either." After the last incident, Mr. Qi often went to the Jinyuan court to check Aria's injury. Su Huanli came over in a hurry and told her. Zhu Yan was so angry that she stared at him and said, "Master, you even restrict me for an outsider? What's the reason? We have been together for many years. Can't we compare with a poor scholar?" Su Huanli sighed deeply and comforted her, "Madam, I'm also thinking about the overall situation. Although Dr. Qi has no money or power, none of his students is easy to deal with. They are all officials of the imperial court. And he has a very high prestige in his school. If we don't appease him, the future of our Su family will be over. Madam, you must bear it." Although she knew that the master would pressure her with the overall situation, Zhu Yan was so angry that she couldn't eat or sleep. In just half a month, she was so thin that she was out of shape. Zhu Yan had never been so sullen. It was outrageous. "When I pass Zipei to a rich and powerful family, I will make him pay by myself." Zhu Yan looked at Su Zipei's beautiful and tender face full of vitality. She cheered up quickly. A few days later, in the school, "What the hell are you writing? Even your brother Su Qinghao's writing is better than yours. It's really a shame for me. Su Zipei, you don't deserve to be my student. You don't have to come tomorrow." Qi Xianqing grabbed the paper and sprinkled it on Su Zipei's face. Su Zipei was so aggrieved that tears were rolling in her eyes. She angrily looked at the paper on the ground and wanted to refute a few words. But the fact was, as Qi Xianqing said, her writing was crooked and the ugliest. Although Su Qinghao's writing was not good-looking, it was straight and neat. But Su Aria's writing, it was so beautiful. Every stroke and every drawing was elegant and graceful, as though it was made by nature itself. Put together with Su Aria's writing, Su Zipei's writing was really a scribble. It was as ugly as dog shit. This is the talent. "Qinghao, your second sister's talent in calligraphy is the best I have ever seen. Maybe she will become a master of calligraphy in the future and form a school of her own. You should study hard." Qi Xianqing smiled and said. Su Qinghao looked at the second sister's writing with little stars in his eyes. He admired her very much. It was a pity that women didn't learn martial arts. He wanted to compare notes with the second sister. "You must be joking. I have little talent and little learning. I have to learn more. Second sister, you are too modest. I think you are as good as my brother." "Haha, Qinghao, you. The three people talked happily, but Su Zipei was ignored as if she was invisible. Her eyes were red again. It's different from what I said. Mother clearly said that I am the best. Why is the second sister better than me? Why does the fourth brother not worship me? It's different from what I said. You are all bad people. I don't care about you. I am going to find my mother. Su Zipei cried and left, leaving Su Qinghao and Su Area with astonishment. Qi Xianqing stroked his white beard and smiled. Su Zipei was like her mother. She wanted to kill her sister at a young age. It was obvious that her nature was rotten to the root. How could he teach such a vicious girl to read? He simply drove her away directly. Mother, mother! Su Zipei cried and rushed in from the door. When she saw Zhu Yan, she felt more aggrieved and threw herself into her mother's arms. What's wrong? I have taught you to be calm when things happen. It's useless to cry. Cheer up. Zhu Yan reprimanded with a serious face. She couldn't help but sigh in her heart. Recently, everything was not going well. It was simply that God was against her. She didn't accomplish anything she wanted to accomplish. Instead, all kinds of troubles came to her. Mother, the teacher said that my handwriting was too ugly. He didn't want to teach me and didn't allow me to go to school. Bang! Zhu Yan patted on the tea table with one hand and the teacup made a crisp sound. Qi Xianqing, you are going too far. Obviously, I have yielded, but you are still insatiable. Do you really think that I, Zhu Yan, am easy to be bullied? Zhu Yan was angry. She got up and walked out. When she crossed the door, she thought of Su Huanli's exhortation. She thought that she was not welcomed in the Zhu family during this time. She unconsciously slowed down. Mother, don't you help me to seek justice? Seeing her mother stopped halfway, Su Zipei followed her and said with grievance. Zhu Yan sighed deeply. She had too many scruples. She squatted down and stroked Su Zipei's face. She said softly, Zipei, I have my own difficulties. Tomorrow, I will help you find a teacher to teach you alone. After this period of time, I will send you to the best school, okay? No, it's not good at all. Su Zipei's quiet expression suddenly became ferocious. She said with hatred, other teachers are far worse than Mr. Qi. How can I surpass my second sister? Mother, you are biased. I don't like you. Zhu Yan was shocked and angry. She subconsciously slapped Su Zipei. Slap. Su Zipei's face swelled quickly. She blankly covered her right cheek. Tears quickly accumulated in her eyes. She screamed sadly, Mother, you hit me. Zhu Yan regretted it. She was at a loss and reached out to comfort her. But she was slapped away by Su Zipei, who was full of hatred. Don't be so hypocritical. You have long wanted to change your daughter to love, haven't you? You go to find Su Area. I'll get out. Su Zipei sneered and left angrily. Zhu Yan covered her face and sighed. She was inexplicably sad. Mother painstakingly planned and fell into such a situation. It's all for you. Unknowingly, it was early summer. In the corridor of the Jinyuan court, Su Li was half lying on the rattan chair. The wind blew through the hall, which was very comfortable. Since Qi Xianqing drove Su Zipei away last time, only she and Su Qinghao were left in the school. There was a lot of fun for no reason. The injury on her back had been healed half a month ago. Qi Xianqing's medical means didn't leave any scars. But the accumulated scars were still there. If she wanted to remove them, she had to cut the wound again. Su Li didn't think that she had so much time to waste. Miss, I went to the account office to get a lot less money this month. Mammy Li walked in from outside the courtyard with a sad face. She said, last month, I got 200 taels. This month, I only got 30 taels. I went to ask the old butler. He said that he gave 300 taels to the Jinyuan court. I suspect, Mammy, don't guess randomly. If it is heard by others, trouble will come to you again. Su Li got up and held Mammy Li's hand. She comforted her, I still have a lot of savings. It can support me for a long time. Mammy Li sighed slightly. She blamed herself for being useless. In the end, it was the miss who comforted her. Chapter 24. Shaking her head to dispel the weird thoughts, Mammy Li suggested, why don't I do some female work to support the family? You have made the master unhappy because of the first madam last time. This time, no matter how wronged you are, you can't go to him. Mammy Li was smart enough to know that she couldn't go to Su Huanli now. Su Li's eyes flickered slightly and she said gently, I know. Don't worry. Hey. Miss, you can rest for a while. I will prepare lunch right away. Mammy Li answered and went to the kitchen. Su Li bent down and gently closed the dictionary of Dahan that Butler Li took from Su Zipei's room. Then she walked to the main courtyard with light steps. Master, second miss wants to see you. At the door of the study, Butler Li reported. Su Huanli put down the account book and frowned slightly. What does this girl come for? She just recovered. She should come to pay respects to the master. Butler Li laughed. Su Huanli snorted, I don't think so. Let her in. The intimacy he had with his second daughter because of the Zongzi had long faded away because of the matter of the first madam. Without the help of the Zhu family, the business of the silk shop was simply difficult. What's more, the first madam told him this morning that Arya owned the Jinyuan court alone and even made trouble in the accounting office. She wanted 500 taels of silver a month, which was more than the sum of Qinghao and Zipei. Zhu Yan didn't want to pay, but Arya even made trouble in the accounting office. Finally, she took 300 taels of silver. It was outrageous. After a while, Su Li in a plain dress slowly came in from outside the door. Perhaps because of the mischief in his heart, Su Huanli didn't feel happy when he saw his second daughter this time. Instead, he felt a little nauseous because of the latter's greed. Daddy, I pay respects to you. The treatment really cost you a lot. Su Li walked to the desk and bowed, apologizing. Su Huanli was unmoved and said in a cold and perfunctory tone, you have a little conscience. What are you doing here? Su Li seemed to be scared by Su Huanli's tone. Her face was slightly pale. She stepped back and said, I just want to explain the accounting office. Okay. Su Huanli thought that Su Li wanted to quibble. He immediately laughed and said, your mother has told me about it. What else do you have to say? Has mother said it already? Su Li was shocked and said, Daddy, it's not like what my mother said. 300 taels are really too much. I only need 30 taels. Su Huanli heard something wrong. If Su Li said that she didn't take 300 taels, he wouldn't believe it. But he could clearly tell that although his daughter was talking about money, it didn't seem to be the same topic at all. Su Li lowered her head, and her tears fell like pearls. She whispered intermittently, 30 taels is enough for Arya. I don't need to increase my allowance. My father is busy with business, so he must spend a lot of money. How can I be so wasteful? I only took 30 taels. Are you saying that your mother increased your allowance? Su Huanli was confused. The more he listened, the more confused he became. He couldn't help but ask. Su Li seemed to be startled. She raised her head and revealed her tear-stained face, like a white flower covered with dew in the morning. Su Huanli was touched. Any normal person would feel distressed when he saw this scene, let alone his daughter standing in front of him. Yes. Butler Li said that I only let Mammy Li take 30 taels. It's really voluntary. Daddy, please don't blame my mother. Ah. No, it's... Su Li seemed to have spilled the beans, but she didn't know how to remedy it. She didn't know what to say for a while. Butler Li stood at the door like a sculpture. He slightly raised the corner of his mouth and couldn't help but sigh. This silly girl. Zhu Yan didn't treat her as a person at all, but she still tried to protect her mother. Although the way seemed to be self-defeating, it didn't prevent him from having a deep feeling of pity for Su Li. She was such a kind and simple girl. Even if Qi Xianqing didn't tell him, he would protect her from being hurt. Well, I know what happened in the accountant's office. Don't cry. Look, this is the cloud cake I bought from the county. Take some back. Su Huanli's cold face melted like ice and snow, and he became a kind father again. Su Li was flattered and took the food box. Her black gem-like eyes immediately smiled into a crescent shape. Thank you, Daddy. Mammy Li has already made lunch. Mr. Li said that frugality is a virtue. I will wait until I am hungry in the afternoon. Ha 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 ha, good girl, go ahead. Su Huanli laughed heartily. After sending Su Li out, he returned to the room with a gloomy face instantly. He asked in a low voice, Butler, what the hell is going on? The old butler said slowly, last night, the first madam went to the accountant's office. She first raised Aria's regular money from 200 taels to 300 taels. Then she took all of them away and said that they were sent to Aria. It seems that the second miss only got 30 taels. What she said was a lie. It's outrageous. Su Huanli was angry and said, why didn't you tell me such an important thing? The old butler lowered his eyes and didn't mention the stupid appearance of Su Huanli who was cheated before. He whispered, I was about to say it, but the second miss came. The second miss meant that the Lord shouldn't blame the first madam. Don't blame her. Su Huanli banged the desk and said, this is my Su family, not Zhu Yan's bank. Butler. Do you have something to hide from me? The old butler buried his head lower and said, the first madam didn't take much before, and, even if I said it, the Lord would only believe that I took it all. Crack. The white porcelain teacup was broken on the ground. It's outrageous. It's outrageous. Who is greedy? She even slandered Aria and lied. Has she ever regarded me as her husband? And the Su family? Su Huanli's eyes were red. He was so angry that he almost went crazy. Sadly, he couldn't vent his anger on Zhu Yan. Otherwise, the silk business established by the Su family with the help of the Zhu family would be destroyed. Don't be angry, Lord. Health is the most important thing. Butler Li quickly persuaded him, you still have Aria. She is so filial. When it came to Aria, Su Huanli felt inexplicably comforted and calmed down. Yes, in such a big Su family, at least there was a daughter who really cared about him. Under the deliberate reminder of Butler Li, Su Huanli seemed to find the home of his soul at this moment. He looked lively and carefully said, that girl is too simple. If she goes out alone, she may be sold without knowing it. If I go out in the future, how can I rest assured if she stays in the west courtyard alone? Butler, you arrange more servants to protect her. Okay, Lord. Then the first madam, Butler Li didn't finish his words. Su Huanli looked slightly cold, keep an eye on her. If she bullies Aria again, you must stop her. When she saves enough money, she will definitely find an excuse to go out again. This time, you must find out the reason. Su Huanli then realized that it was not his second daughter who had embarrassed him, but Zhu Yan who was full of lies. When he drove Zhu Yan away, he felt guilty and kept thinking about how to make up for it. So, when Zhu Yan said the accounting office, he immediately believed it. Damn bitch. Crack. Su Huanli slapped himself fiercely. His eyes were malicious and the seeds of suspicion took root in his heart. Oh, second miss, where are you going? I am so worried. Mammy Li stood at the gate of the Jinyuan court anxiously. When she saw Su Li come back, she immediately asked. Su Li shed a few tears, but her eyes were not red. Instead, she smiled and said, I just went out for a walk. Mammy Li, I am hungry. Let's eat quickly. Mammy Li saw that she looked as usual and was relieved. The food is ready. Go back to the room to eat quickly. Su Li smiled more brightly. After lunch, Mammy Li was cleaning up the dishes. The old butler suddenly came in from outside the kitchen and asked, Mammy Li, is the second miss in the courtyard? Seeing the old butler, Mammy Li was worried and lied, the second miss has already taken a nap. What's the matter? Li Yin's ears moved slightly. He clearly heard Su Li's short breath in the room. She was not asleep. He squinted and said with a smile, since the second miss is taking a nap, I won't bother her. This is the compensation given by the Lord. Please give it to the second miss when she wakes up. Mammy Li was slightly shocked and subconsciously took the thing in Li Yin's hand. She looked down and was immediately shocked. Silver, 500 taels. Don't worry. I have explained it to the Lord today. The Lord is angry with the madam. He also asked me to take good care of the second miss in the future. The 500 taels are given by the Lord. Don't worry, Mammy. Li Yin explained in a warm voice. Mammy Li was suddenly surprised and happy. Great. Now the second miss doesn't have to worry about being bullied. Li Yin smiled slightly and thought that Mammy Li was also an out-and-out kind-hearted person. She always thought about the second Mississippi, Mammy Li, I am usually in the accounting room. If the second miss has any trouble in the future, you must tell me. Li Yin said, this is also the Lord's order. Sure. Mammy Li was grateful and said, Butler, you are really a good person. Li Yin was slightly stunned and smiled bitterly. He was not a good person. Although he wanted to explain this time, it was a thankless task. The relationship between him and the Lord was not as close as that between a husband and a wife. It was the second miss who made the Lord completely sober. After the butler left, Mammy Li was very happy. She hurried to the study without washing the dishes and said to Su Li, who was practicing calligraphy, Miss, great news. After Mammy Li said it clearly, Su Li stopped writing and sneered in her heart. She didn't expect that Su Huanli, a profit-seeking old guy, had such a soft side. In this way, she was really embarrassed to do it. Su Li pretended to be surprised and said, Really? That's great. I am still hesitating whether to find my father. Chapter 25. At this moment, a carriage with exquisite and luxurious decoration stopped outside the gate of the Su house. The curtain was engraved with a big character, Yang. When the coachman lifted the curtain of the carriage, a young man dressed in luxurious golden clothes with an arrogant expression immediately walked out from within. Snap! The young man patted his folding fan. With his handsome face, he had a temperament of a good child. Cousin, Yang Wei, come as promised. The young man strode across the border to the Su house. After a while, there was a sound of ouch. Yang Wei slipped and fell on his face. His mouth was bleeding. He got up and wiped the blood on his face. His expression was gradually distorted. Fuck your grandma's leg. Which bastard sprinkled lime on the road? It smells like cloud cake. Achoo! Su Li inexplicably wiped her nose. Who is talking about me? In the central room. Su Huanli looked at Yang Wei with a swollen face and smiled. You should be careful when you walk. If you are disfigured, it will be troublesome. Do you come here today to return the night luminescent pearl? Yang Wei's face was not red at all. He held his fist and said, Uncle, don't joke. The night luminescent pearl belongs to the county magistrate. I don't have it. I come here today to propose marriage. Su Huanli's smile froze and he slowly clenched his fist. What do you mean? Yang Wei didn't seem to realize that he made Su Huanli unhappy. He continued, last year, I fell in love with Miss Si Pei at first sight. I hope you can help me. Bastard! Su Huanli slammed the table and shouted, Little bastard, you stole the treasure of the Su family last year and delayed my son's career for a year. How dare you come here today? Get out of here. Yang Wei stood up as if to apologize, but his expression was still cold and arrogant. He smiled and said, Uncle, don't be impulsive. It's better to listen to the betrothal gift I brought. What? Su Huanli restrained his anger and raised his eyebrows slightly. He said slowly, if it's something unpresentable, don't think about marrying the daughter of the Su family. Yang Wei was confident and said proudly, I believe that as long as you listen to it, you will definitely agree. An hour later, Su Huanli's face was complicated. Yang Wei felt proud and held his fist and said, since you have agreed, I will go back and tell my parents. Take care, my dear nephew. Su Huanli immediately got up and put on a smiling face. He couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Yang Wei was much worse than Qing Tan. There were countless talents in the county city, so he was not surprised that this idiot had failed. But this lad actually ran into some dog shit luck and managed to latch onto a thigh in the county capital. As a result, he was able to obtain the position of supervisor. The affairs of the world were truly unpredictable. The news of Yang Wei's arrival reached the west courtyard early the next morning. What? Cousin, why didn't you come to see me? Su Zipei jumped out of bed with a look of surprise. She dressed up and was about to go out, but when she heard the maid say that Yang Wei had left, she couldn't help but feel disappointed. Did cousin forget the agreement between them? Zhu Yan frowned and cursed in her heart. Useless trash. He didn't even pass the preliminary examination of the county town. I wanted to use him to get in touch with the rich and powerful families in Yunjing and find out the origin of the jade pendant. It seems that it is impossible. Mammy Li also heard the news and told Suli. Suli was not surprised, but said on the surface, counting the days, the results of last year's preliminary examination in the county town have come out. Cousin Yang Wei didn't go to Yunjing. He probably failed. When Mammy Li heard the words, she suddenly said strangely, it should be so. I heard that Master Yang's talent is far less than that of the first master. However, Master Yang didn't seem to be disappointed this time. Instead, he was full of joy. Su Li was silent, and her black eyes were as deep as the sea. Since her rebirth, she only changed the fate of her eldest brother, Su Qingtan. In the previous life, the Su family was unable to bribe Li Shanbao, so the position finally fell on the master of the Zhu family. The eldest brother was selected in the 3rd year. However, Yang Wei flattered the young master of the satrap and became a supervisor of Qinghe County. Li Shanbao was threatened by him everywhere. Finally, he gave up the Bai Wei building to keep his position. It seemed that Yang Wei would come to marry Su Zipei in a few days. Su Li smiled perfectly. She had been waiting for this good show for a long time. Mammy Li, prepare the carriage. I want to go to the county town. Su Li suddenly said. Mammy Li was stunned at first, and then she nodded with surprise and joy. Miss, you are finally willing to go out for a walk. It will be summer soon. Miss, you don't even have a nice dress. You should buy some, and Mammy Li went out of the courtyard while muttering. Her eyes were wet. This was the second Miss's first time to go out. Thinking of the torture of the first madam in the past, the second Miss even had a problem to eat. Now she finally lived a normal life. It was not easy. After a while, Mammy Li came back happily, followed by Butler Li. It is the second Miss's first time to go shopping. For safety, I arranged 2 guards to follow you. Remember to be careful. If you are in danger, run to the Bai Chao Tang. Su Li nodded slightly. Thank you, Butler Li. I will be careful. Li Yin's eyes flickered slightly, and he nodded with a smile. From the surface, he really couldn't see whether the girl had accepted the inheritance of Qi Xianqing. Go! The coachman shouted all the way. In less than 10 minutes, the noise outside the carriage became louder from far to near. Miss, we are catching up with the morning market. There are too many people on the road, and the carriage can't drive through. Let's get off early, the coachman of the Su family suggested nervously. It was the first time that he met the second miss of the Su family, and he didn't know the latter's temperament. Su Li lifted the curtain of the carriage, glanced around, and nodded warmly, yes, we should get off. If the carriage occupies such a crowded road, it will be bullying. Then, Su Li quickly got off the carriage. She was a little unstable, and Mammy Li quickly held her. The coachman was stunned, and his impression of Su Li was greatly improved. The second miss was so kind. If she was like the third miss, she would definitely scold him and let him rush over directly. Asking the coachman to wait here, Su Li and Mammy Li entered the market along the street. Their bright and luxurious clothes immediately distinguished them from ordinary people, which attracted people's attention. Which family does this miss come from? She is so beautiful, like a fairy. If I can marry such a wife, I am willing to die immediately. Go, go, go. Dream on. I know the old mammy. She is from the Su family. Is she Suzy Pei? I have seen Suzy Pei. She is not as beautiful as her. The whispers were drowned in the noise, but many of them were heard by Mammy Li, which made Mammy Li smile and whisper, Miss, they are all praising you for your beauty. Su Li blushed and stamped her feet slightly, Mammy, don't make fun of me anymore. Su Li's coquettish behavior immediately stunned many people and bumped into others. Which blind little bastard bumped into your grandpa? Who are you calling a little bastard? I'm talking about you, little bastard. I'll kill you, son of a bitch. The scene was chaotic, and Mammy Li quickly dragged Su Li away. They didn't stop until they ran to the east street where there were fewer people. Hey, look, Mammy. It turns out that this is the Byway building. I have long wanted to see it. Su Li's eyes were bright. She left Mammy Li who was still resting and went straight in. Mammy Li took a breath and helplessly followed Su Li. Miss, wait for me. As for the two guards, they had already been separated in the bazaar. The Byway building was quite cold in the morning, and only some guests were enjoying breakfast. As soon as Su Li sat down, a quick-witted waiter ran to her and said enthusiastically, What would you like to order? The dishes in our restaurant are famous for their delicious food. Su Li's eyes were bright. Do you have any signature dishes? The waiter immediately replied, Of course. Recently, the most delicious dish in the Byway building is the fragrance of 100 leaves. Would you like to have a try? Then serve me 2 servings of fragrance of 100 leaves and all the signature dishes. Okay, wait a moment. After the waiter went down, Mammy Li just climbed to the second floor. Seeing Su Li, she hurriedly ran to her and complained, Miss, wait for me. I'm old and can't run fast. I know. Su Li's tone was soft. Mammy Li must be tired. Sit down and have a rest. I ordered a lot of delicious dishes. Miss, will you order too much? There are only 2 of us. If we can't finish it, it will be a waste. Faced with the first order of her miss, Mammy Li was worried as expected. Don't worry, Mammy Li. If we can't finish it, we can take it back. Hearing Su Li's words, Mammy Li was more worried. Here are the dishes. At this time, the waiters shouted and came over with a large plate of dishes. When Mammy Li saw the dishes on the tray, her eyes almost popped out. Miss, these 10 dishes are the signature dishes of our restaurant. They are 5 spices roast boar, kung pao chicken, jinxiang fish skewers. Fragrance of 100 leaves. In the blink of an eye, the square table was full of dishes. Su Li ate with relish. Mammy Li smiled bitterly. Since the miss had moved the chopsticks, these dishes couldn't be returned. She'd better eat. While eating, Mammy Li found that her miss was really wasteful. She only moved her chopsticks once or twice for each dish. She didn't eat the dishes even if they were ruined. She didn't know what she was doing. Su Li tasted the last dish of boar and took a sip of tea. Her eyes were clear. The Byway building could dominate the county because it had the capital. Even if these dishes were placed in the county town, they could attract many customers. However, compared with all kinds of delicacies taught by her husband in the previous life, they were still far behind. Suli smiled slightly and her eyes fell on the so-called fragrance of 100 leaves. Mammy Lee happened to pick up a piece and put it into her mouth. The next moment, Mammy Lee's eyes widened and she whispered in surprise, "Miss, isn't this your zongzi? How did it become the signature dish of the Baiwei building?" The fragrance of 100 leaves on the plate was a group of rice balls with complicated decorations. It was almost impossible to see the cooking method. The appearance was far from zongzi, but the taste was definitely the same. Chapter 26. Mammy Lee suddenly remembered Master's order to stop Suli from making zongzi. Mammy Lee was shocked and stopped talking. "If I can exchange a small dish for a bright future for my eldest brother, I will make it," Suli said playfully. Mammy Lee was reminded by Suli. She immediately figured out the cause and effect and trembled. The second miss was much smarter than she thought. She had already thought of this. Or, the so-called zongzi was simply a bargaining chip that the second miss deliberately threw out? What happened in the past few months flashed in front of Mammy Lee. She had been with Suli and saw it clearly, but she didn't see any deliberate trace. It seemed that all these were just coincidences. If all these were deliberate by the second miss, then the second miss was so terrible. Maybe even she was included in it. Mammy Lee didn't dare to think about it. She was afraid. Subconsciously, she was more willing to believe that the second miss was an innocent, lovely and kind person. No, the second miss was seriously injured twice and couldn't control herself. If what I think is true, the second miss will not let herself fall into such a dangerous situation. "Mammy, why are you sweating? Is it very hot here?" Suli felt strange. Mammy Lee suddenly woke up and wiped the sweat on her forehead with a forced smile. She said, "I eat too much. It's a little hot. Then take it home and eat it slowly." "Mammy, you must have never eaten so much delicious food. Don't waste it." Looking at Suli's warm and harmless smile, Mammy Lee calmed down a lot and smiled as usual. "It's up to you." The meal cost 30 taels. When Mammy Lee paid, her heart was bleeding. If she cooked for the second miss, 30 taels were enough for her to eat for 3 months. "Mammy, now the market is over. Ask the coachman to bring the carriage here. I will go over there to have a look." Suli pointed to the small shop opposite the Baiwei building and said, "Miss, you stay in the shop and don't run around. I will come right away." Mammy Lee was a little worried and told her, "Don't worry, Mammy. It's just a few steps. No one dares to commit murder in broad daylight." Suli blinked her eyes and said. Mammy Lee laughed in her heart and left the terrible speculation behind. How could she always think badly of such a naive miss? After Mammy Lee left, Suli stopped smiling and walked to the shop opposite the Baiwei building. To be exact, she walked to the two brother and sister in strange clothes outside the shop. As soon as she approached, the boy, who looked like an elder brother, immediately raised his head and smiled warmly. "Miss, you are so beautiful. My sister and I were unfortunate enough to wander here. I hope Miss will be kind enough to let me buy my sister some food and clothes." Behind the boy, a little girl with a pair of big eyes stared timidly at Suli. She was only 10 years old. Suli thought. Suli seemed to be moved by his compassion and said in a gentle voice, "I didn't expect that you and I, who are of the same age, would lead such a difficult life." "I didn't expect that our life is Su said. "How about this, I'll spend 500 taels of silver to buy everything in your stall. You and your sister can take the money and start a small business and live a good life." Fang Yuan was stunned and stared at Suli's pretty face without any makeup. Was there such a pure and kind person in the world? From the Nanjiang country to the Dahan country, they had encountered all kinds of difficulties. But it was the first time for him to meet someone like Su Li. Brother, you are stunned. Is she so beautiful? Fong Ling pushed her brother angrily. Fong Yuan immediately came to himself. But he found that there was nothing under his feet. The stall had been taken away by Su Li and was replaced by a bag full of silver. Brother, it's not good for us to cheat people like this. The sister gave us all her money. Will she be scolded by her family? Fong Ling sniffled and said worriedly. Fong Yuan snorted and said, the rich miss won't care about the 500 taels. Maybe it is just a drop in the bucket. Don't be cheated. There are no good people in the world. At this time, a carriage passed by slowly, followed by an old mammy. Miss, you are confused. This is the regular money of next month. How can you give it to others? If you buy a pile of junk, what will we eat next month? The voice gradually went away. Fong Ling listened to it and couldn't help but murmur, brother's words can't be totally believed. It's just an accident. That woman deserves it. It has nothing to do with us. Fong Yuan's face was cold, but his hands were clenched tightly. His cold heart seemed to be shaken. Back to the Su house, Mammy Li didn't complain about Su Li anymore. She went to clean up the packed food alone. In the bright study, Su Li opened the dirty package and gently put a black shell on the table. She threw the rest into the wastepaper basket. Su Li stared at the warm shell with black luster and her eyes brightened. She had been putting on an act for this object. Even if she paid 10 times the price, she would find ways to get it, even at the cost of killing people. Nanjiang was good at raising poisonous insects. Although the brother and sister were from Nanjiang, they didn't recognize the black shell. It was clearly a poisonous insect in a state of suspended animation. The name of the poisonous insect is Sound Acquaintance. Su Li secretly thought, I didn't expect that the famous poisonous insect of immortal 100 faces in the previous life would fall into my hands in this life. It was said that the refining conditions of this poisonous insect were harsh, and there was only one in the world. It could simulate the voice of anyone who had heard it, and it was easy to simulate the sound of animals. Talk. 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 Su Li rhythmically knocked on the surface of the shell for half a quarter of an hour. Suddenly, crack. A crack appeared in the middle of the black shell, and then it was gently opened, revealing the dim poisonous insect, which made a coo-coo sound. This poisonous insect was obviously very weak and needed to be fed. Su Li showed a faint smile and softly hummed a song with a unique tone. The song contained a unique charm. The wrinkled body of the poisonous insect immediately became slightly plump and emitted a white jade-like luster. Sound Acquaintance was a sound poisonous insect. It fed on sounds, but it didn't eat all sounds. It only ate the tone it liked. Su Li was now humming the song of feeding poisonous insect invented by immortal 100 faces in the previous life. With one more pet, Su Li's daily life became more fulfilling. In addition to reading and practicing, she had to hum every day. Although Mammy Li wondered why the miss suddenly liked singing, she didn't ask much. In such a busy daily life, Su Li finally practiced the Ghost Valley meditation direction to the 3rd level. It seemed to be a hurdle from the 2nd level to the 3rd level. Su Li only felt that her body was reborn, and her internal qi increased 3 times. Her foundation was much more solid than in the previous life. It turns out that the first 5 levels are used to build the foundation. I had no foundation in the previous life. No wonder I was possessed by the devil. Su Li muttered to herself and asked Mammy Li to boil hot water for a bath to remove the grease from the pores. After Su Li came out from the screen, Mammy Li, who was waiting outside with clothes, suddenly stared at her. Miss, you are more beautiful. Mammy Li gasped and almost drooled. The miss seemed to grow a lot overnight, and her facial features became more profound and perfect. The skin on her face was so tender that it seemed that water could be squeezed out. It is said that a girl changes 18 times before she grows up. Miss, you have changed more than 18 times. You are like a different person. The only fly in the ointment was that the whip scars still crawled all over Su Li's body like cobwebs. While dressing Su Li, Mammy Li couldn't help but be sad and shed tears. What a perfect miss, but there were so many scars on her body. God was really blind. Mammy, don't cry. I won't be beaten anymore. Mammy, you should be happy for me. Su Li comforted Mammy Li, but she frowned tightly. If she knew that the third level of Xiangong would have such a big change, she would never break through so hastily. She hoped that Qi Xianqing didn't see anything wrong. In the morning, Su Li came to the school. Qi Xianqing was really scared, and Su Qinghao was even more stunned. His sister was really more beautiful than a fairy. After the class, Qi Xianqing called Su Li alone. He hesitated for a long time and asked, "Arya, have you broken through to the second level?" Su Li was slightly stunned and said, "I don't know. I just slept for a while. When I got up this morning, I became like this." Mammy Li was shocked. Qi Xianqing was surprised and happy. He couldn't help but frown and whispered, "It shouldn't be. Is this the benefit of the physique?" "Master, what did you say?" Su Li blinked and pretended to be confused. Qi Xianqing came back to himself and glanced at his apprentice's amazing appearance. He was almost moved. "Oh no. Your appearance is enough to bring disaster to the country and people. It is easy to cause trouble." Qi Xianqing had a headache and said, "I will go out these days. I will ask for a disguise skill for you to cover up your appearance. You should study at home and don't go out." Qi Xianqing thought that Su Li would refuse. After all, she was in her budding age. Who didn't want their beauty to be known by others? Unexpectedly, Su Li agreed. Su Li was worried that she had no excuse to disguise. In this way, the disguise skill had a good explanation. Qi Xianqing really helped her a lot. After Qi Xianqing left, Su Li returned to the Jinyuan court and didn't go out. Mammy Li stared at Su Li's face when she was a little distracted. She was quite fascinated by Su Li. "I finally found a plant that Miss is looking for today." After a few days, Mammy Li happily came in with a bundle of golden plants like a feather duster. As early as a month ago, Su Li threw a picture album to Mammy Li and asked her to pay attention to the plants on it. Su Li looked up and was surprised. It turns out to be sesame. Now I can make fried glutinous rice balls with sesame. What fried glutinous rice balls with sesame? You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.